Chapter 1665. Feline stared at Chun Zhao in shock. However, there was wariness in her eyes. Chun Zhao met Feline's gaze. With some hesitation, he asked, "You two, what's your relationship with the White Spear Society?" "Nothing." Chun Zhao wasn't sure why Feline was wary of him. Were Feline and the White Spear Society friends or foes? Feline wouldn't believe Chun Zhao. He'd come to New Orleans to find the White Spear Society. Nothing to say. "If I'm related, I should go to the White Spear Society directly instead of waiting here," Chun Zhao said. Feline stood there in silence. She wasn't sure if she should believe him. After a while, Feline said, "No need. You won't find them." "You know about the White Spear Society?" "Yes, but I won't say," Feline said indifferently. Chun Zhao was helpless too. Feline wasn't willing to say. He couldn't force her. However, Chun Zhao felt that there was more to Feline's words. "Since that's the case, we have nothing to talk about. Goodbye." "Mr. Chun, I'm curious. How did you deplete the surrounding elements?" Feline hadn't forgotten her main reason for meeting Chun Zhao. To her, Chun Zhao's spell wasn't useless. However, it wasn't very useful either. Its biggest use was to counter elemental spells. She was more curious about Chun Zhao. Depletion of elements? Chun Zhao froze. But then he understood. She was talking about his non-elemental body. However, as the perpetrator, Chun Zhao was a bit slow to realize. After all, Chun Zhao had absorbed the elements into his body. The elements from the outside world would quickly fill the vacuum zone. So, Chun Zhao didn't notice the vacuum zone he'd created. Or rather, he noticed it but didn't take it to heart. After all, it didn't affect him at all. Chun Zhao thought hard for the entire day. He gave the non-elemental giant a new name, Giant Miracle God. Chun Zhao thought that the name was pretty good. "Why should I tell you?" Chun Zhao looked at Feline with a smile. Since she wasn't willing to share information about the White Spear Society with him, then he wouldn't share his ability with her generously. "Fine, Mr. Chun, please leave." Feline asked Chun Zhao to leave. Chun Zhao didn't continue pestering her. He turned and left Fu Lin's room. Chun Zhao returned to his room. However, Chun Zhao was still monitoring Feline. She was unwilling to tell him about the White Spear Association. Couldn't he think of a way himself? However, Feline was still very careful. He didn't leave until 2 in the morning. Chun Zhao also followed them out of the hotel. Fu Lin was driving the car on the empty street. She felt that something was wrong. She didn't know why, but she just felt that something was wrong. But what exactly was wrong? She couldn't put her finger on it. Was he being followed? Fu Lin stopped the car and opened his spiritual vision. She glanced around and found no source of magic power within several kilometers. Fu Lin heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had been overly cautious. It was probably because of the small conflict with Chun Zhao. Let her be vigilant. In fact, Fu Lin had overlooked something. In the sky, several hundred meters above Fu Lin, Chun Zhao had been following him silently. Perhaps it was because he had investigated once and found nothing. Fu Lin's mood also relaxed. Fu Lin came to a beach that hadn't been developed before. After walking around the beach, Fu Lin stopped in front of a rock that was as tall as a person. There was a red engraving on the rock. It should be some kind of magic rune. Fu Lin cautiously used his spiritual vision to look around. Only then did he send magic power into the rune. The rune suddenly exploded with a beam of light, shooting straight at the control center. The rune was imprinted on the clouds in the sky, but by now, it was already very faint. A normal person wouldn't be able to see the rune imprinted on the clouds. Chun Zhao was still hiding in the sky. Chun Zhao analyzed that it should be some kind of message. But after waiting for a long time, Fu Lin was a bit impatient. Strange. Why isn't he here yet? Fu Lin waited for a long time, but the person she was waiting for still didn't come. The wind that had been blowing on the beach for more than an hour had disappeared. Fu Lin was finally sure that the person she was waiting for wouldn't come. Fu Lin's expression was a bit ugly, even a bit heavy. Chun Zhao was also a bit disappointed. Fu Lin had been in the sea breeze for more than an hour. Chun Zhao was the same. Why didn't the person Fu Lin was looking for appear? Logically speaking, she'd already sent the signal, so the person should be here. After Fu Lin left, Chun Zhao landed on the beach. Looking at the rock before him, Chun Zhao also tried to send magic power into it. Unfortunately, activating the rune seemed to require a special method. Chun Zhao couldn't activate the rune, so he could only leave resentfully. Fu Lin returned to the hotel and subconsciously used her spiritual vision to observe Chun Zhao's room. He's not in the room. Fu Lin frowned. Where did he go? I miss Fu Lin. Just then, Chun Zhao walked in from the hotel door. Mr. Chun, are you going out so late? Fu Lin looked at Chun Zhao meaningfully. Huh, I'm hungry. Unfortunately, the hotel doesn't provide supper. Chun Zhao shrugged. Fu Lin watched Chun Zhao's back as he left. She was a bit suspicious that Chun Zhao hadn't been following her, but she couldn't find any evidence. Plus, she checked with her spiritual vision just now. Indeed, there were no signs of anyone following her. She was very confident in her spiritual vision. Ever since she'd learned it, she'd never made a mistake. She also didn't believe that her spiritual vision, which had always worked, would make a mistake on Chun Zhao. Fu Lin's heart jumped. She used her spiritual vision to check on Chun Zhao again. She discovered that Chun Zhao's magic source was very weak. It seemed to be a tiny spot on his abdomen, but she could indeed see it. Was she really thinking too much? Fu Lin wasn't sure. Chun Zhao could already feel Fu Lin's strange gaze, but Chun Zhao still didn't show it. Both sides knew that there was something wrong, but neither made it public. Fu Lin shook her head. She had a lot on her mind and couldn't pay attention to Chun Zhao. She'd been in New Orleans for quite some time. She found a few magic runes in New Orleans and activated them to send a message to the White Spear Society. But the White Spear Society still didn't reply. This made her heart heavier. Had something really happened to them? She'd rushed to New Orleans after receiving the White Spear Society's distress message. But after arriving, she still couldn't contact the White Spear Society. Thus, Fu Lin couldn't get over it. She was also wary of Chun Zhao, who'd suddenly appeared. Chapter 1666. The next morning, Portia was preparing breakfast for Chun Zhao. Sam and Vakari were back. Sir, we still didn't find anything last night. Okay, Chun Zhao said. Go get something to eat and then rest. Then we'll go find food first. Sam and Vakari had been monitoring Chun Zhao for the whole night and were very tired. Halfway through, Chun Zhao suddenly stopped. Portia looked at Chun Zhao's paws. He thought maliciously, is this guy choking? Chun Zhao suddenly started eating again. Portia sighed inwardly. Portia, are you cursing me in your heart? No. Portia was flustered and terrified at the same time. How did he know what she was thinking? Do you know reporters? Chun Zhao asked. Portia was still thinking about how to explain to Chun Zhao. The next second, Chun Zhao changed the topic. Reporters. Local reporters in New Orleans. No, I'll go to Los Angeles after graduation. Can you contact reporters from the local TV stations or newspapers in New Orleans? Boss, why do you need reporters? It was possible to contact him, but without a reason, Portia didn't know how to contact him. She couldn't call them and say, hey, my boss wants to see you. They'd think she was crazy. Help me get a few anonymous bank cards, Chun Zhao said. Deposit $50,000, $100,000, and $500,000. Also, give me some cash. How much cash? $200,000 is enough. And then? Then give $10,000 to any reporter who's willing. If you can find the boss or editor of the newspaper, give them $100,000. If it's not enough, give them $200,000. If it's not enough, give them $500,000. Portia looked at Chun Zhao as if he was crazy. Under what name? Didn't I say that I'll give $10,000 to any reporter who's willing? No other reason. Portia was so angry that she couldn't say anything. Which media do I need to contact? Both TV stations and newspapers, Chun Zhao said. Okay, I'll try. Portia had no choice but to go to a local newspaper first. The newspaper had some local reputation. However, the sales volume was not high. The circulation of each issue was only about 10,000 copies. Hello, who are you looking for? I'm looking for the chief editor of your newspaper, said Portia. May I ask who you are? Do you have an appointment with the managing editor? No, but I believe your chief editor will see me. Portia tried her best to remain calm and spoke as haughtily as possible. The receptionist looked at Portia and didn't dare to underestimate her. He picked up the phone and dialed the chief editor's internal line. He explained the situation here once more. Not long after, a man in his 50s walked out. "I'm Hampson, the chief editor here." "Who are you?" Hampson studied Portia. He was sure he didn't know her. However, Portia's lofty attitude made him appear rather cautious. "Mr. Hampson, can we talk in your office?" Hampson thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "Please." When they reached the office, Hampson couldn't help but take the initiative to ask, "Miss, how should I address you?" "You can call me Portia." Portia took out a bank card. "This is an anonymous bank card with $100,000 in it. The password is 123456. Hampson's eyelids twitched. He didn't take the card. "Miss Portia, what do you mean?" "My boss wants to see you. He said that as long as you're willing to see him, this card is yours." "Your boss?" "Yes." "Who's your boss?" "A rich man." Hampson was a little hesitant. Even though he was the chief editor of the newspaper, his annual income was only about $60,000. The money in this card was almost equivalent to 2 years of his income. It would be a lie to say he wasn't tempted. However, he was a little worried. He didn't know who the person was and what request he would make. "What does your boss want from me?" "I think he wants you to publish some news." "I don't know the details." "Just publish some news?" It didn't seem difficult. However, Hampson still didn't agree immediately. "If your boss wants to publish an advertisement, he can contact the advertising department of our newspaper." "I don't know what the boss wants. I'm just here as he asked." "Where does your boss live?" "At the Hilton Hotel." "Isn't your boss a local from New Orleans?" "No." Hampson was initially worried that they would meet in some remote place. If it was such a place, Hampson would never go there. Since it was at the Hilton Hotel, it shouldn't be dangerous. "Okay." Hampson finally nodded. He looked at the bank card in Portia's hand, but didn't take it. Portia stuffed the card into his hand. "By the way, do you know the director or boss of the TV station?" Portia asked. An hour later, in Hampson's office, his expression was a little stiff. He had called his old friend Leberg over, but Portia had given him $100,000. Leberg didn't accept it, so Portia changed another bank card for $200,000. Leberg still didn't accept it, so Portia gave him another bank card for $500,000. He asked to meet Portia's boss at the Hilton Hotel. Hampson was a little regretful. He felt like he'd agreed too easily. If he'd been more reserved, could he have asked for a higher price? Leberg gave in. He was the director of the TV station. However, he was the manager, not the boss. He could be considered a rich man, but definitely not a tycoon. Under Portia's money attack, he quickly laid down his arms and surrendered. Portia brought the two to the Hilton Hotel. Portia didn't know what was wrong with him. However, it was the happiest time she'd ever spent money in her life. It wasn't her money either. She didn't feel any pain at all. She also didn't want to help Chun Zhao save money. Anyway, according to Chun Zhao's request, she just had to throw money at him. If he didn't agree, she would throw money again. Portia suddenly liked her job a little. No, more accurately, she liked the thrill of spending money. She finally understood how rich people felt. "Boss, the person you're looking for is here." Chapter 1667. Both Leberg and Hampson were surprised to see Chun Zhao. They didn't expect him to be Asian. "This is Mr. Hampson, the chief editor of New Orleans Pioneer newspapers. This is Mr. Leberg, the chairman of New Orleans Channel." "Sir, why are you looking for us?" Hampson asked. Chun Zhao looked at Portia. Seeing his gaze, Portia knew that he was going to kick her out again. She was curious about what Chun Zhao wanted to say to them. However, she still turned around and left dutifully. Close the door too. Portia really wanted to say that she wasn't his maid. Unfortunately, Chun Zhao didn't give her the chance. "Mr. Hampson, Mr. Leberg, I'd like you to help me publish a piece of news on your media outlets. Of course, it's for a fee." "What is it?" "Have you heard about the haunted toll station on the Seabrook Coastal Highway?" Chun Zhao asked. Both of them were in the media industry. Of course, they'd heard about it. However, they didn't understand what Chun Zhao meant. "Sir, I don't understand," Hampson said. "What does this have to do with what you're saying?" "I want you to publish this piece of news and say that someone was attacked and died here. You want to use this to create social panic?" Leberg asked, frowning. "No, I have my own purpose. I refuse, Leberg said firmly. I definitely won't publish such irresponsible fake news. $1 million, Chun Zhao said. Leberg hesitated. 2 million. Leberg hesitated. 5 million. Mr. Chun, you have to understand that we have to bear a huge risk for this kind of news. Leberg's eyes flashed. The door is over there, Chun Zhao said calmly. I'll find a few big TV stations. What a joke. $5 million was nothing to him. Who did he think he was? It was just a small local TV station. The New Orleans channel's market value wasn't even 10 million. He'd already offered 5 million, but Chun Zhao was still asking for more. Leberg immediately felt awkward. Mr. Chun, I've actually heard about this before, he said awkwardly. I think we should film some footage to ensure the authenticity of the news. Hampson glanced at his old friend. One unprincipled old man. Mr. Chun, I'm not asking for much. $2 million US. I'll give you a big page to publish this news for 3 consecutive days. Sure, Chun Zhao didn't bargain, but I want this to blow up as much as possible. The more people know, the better. Of course, I hope that no one else knows the truth apart from the two of you. I understand. They accepted Chun Zhao's money. Reporting false news, if this matter were to be known by others, it would be even worse for them. Chun Zhao would be fine, but they would definitely be in big trouble. Portia, come in. Portia pushed the door open and came in. Boss, get 2 anonymous bank cards. One for 5 million USD and the other for 2 million USD. Portia glanced at the 2 old men. It seemed that they had reached an agreement, although he did not know the specific content of their conversation. But one thing was certain. The content of their conversation would definitely appear on tomorrow's news. This was also Chun Zhao's idea. If Sam and Vakari didn't find out, then he would purposely create a supernatural incident to attract spiritualists. Of course, if it was just a rumor like before, it might not attract spiritualists. But if it appeared on the news, the local spiritualists would definitely know about it. Chun Zhao's price was not just for small local TV stations and newspapers. He could even bribe a first-tier media company. But it wouldn't benefit Chun Zhao. After all, he wanted to attract the local spiritualists in New Orleans. Not all the spiritualists in America. Of course, if this still didn't work, then Chun Zhao had a third move. Of course, the second move was already quite bad. Chun Zhao really didn't want to use the third move. Chun Zhao was waiting for news now. Boss, there's a gym in the hotel. You can go there to work out. You don't have to work out in your room every day. There's a gym in the hotel? Chun Zhao had just found out. Then come with me to the gym. Portia didn't want to go, but she had no choice. Since Chun Zhao had asked, she could only go. Actually, Portia wasn't bad-looking. She couldn't be said to be devastatingly beautiful, but her looks were above average. She just didn't care about her appearance all day. Her hair was tied up and she wore thick glasses. She forcefully dressed herself up as one of the 3 unattractive women. Actually, if one thought about it, a woman who wanted to develop in Hollywood, how could her looks be too bad? Plus, Chun Zhao had looked at her with Portia's glasses before. Her glasses were flat glass. They weren't high-resolution glasses at all. Chun Zhao guessed that she was trying to prevent workplace harassment. But Chun Zhao really didn't expect it. Portia, who was usually wrapped up tightly, was now in a daze. She looked so well-dressed after putting on sportswear. As Chun Zhao moved the dumbbells up and down, he studied Portia. Portia, do you not have money to buy clothes? How about I sponsor you, and you change into your usual clothes? If Portia could dress herself up a little every day, Chun Zhao would look good too. No need. Portia turned her head away with a dark expression. Also, what you said is harassment. I have the right to sue you. Fine, fine. Chun Zhao shrugged helplessly. At this moment, a burly man walked over. Hi, miss. Do you need to know more about fitness? I'm a fitness instructor here. The man's eyes were a little dishonest. No need, Portia said in annoyance. The burly man turned to Chun Zhao. Miss, can this Asian satisfy you? Chun Zhao was instantly enraged. He threw the dumbbells down. Gorilla, do you need a beating? Skinny monkey, are you talking to me? Other than you, which gorilla is here? The burly man looked at Chun Zhao with a hideous expression. All his muscles bulged and his chest muscles bounced. Did you inject cholesterol into your brain? So your brain is filled with hardened cholesterol? Usually, only those who were born muscular like Gaia would go to the gym. Most people only got huge muscles by injecting cholesterol. However, it was too insulting to say that in front of a fitness expert. Kid, do you think I won't twist your head off? Can you do it? Chapter 1668. Boss, forget it. Portia looked at the burly man. Worried that Chun Zhao would be at a disadvantage, she pulled him. Chun Zhao's figure was not bad, but it was far from the bodybuilder's. Chun Zhao's thighs weren't even as thick as the man's arms. It wasn't a wise choice to have a conflict here. Unfortunately, Chun Zhao was never a coward when it came to fighting, especially when this bodybuilder was mocking him. Little monkey, go back to your mother's arms and drink milk. Chun Zhao looked at the burly man. Is your grandmother in the gym? The man didn't react in time. Portia covered her head. It seemed that this conflict was unavoidable. The burly man finally understood. He flew into a rage and charged at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao caught the man's fists with both hands. Walking cholesterol, is that all you have? Chun Zhao looked at the man mockingly. The man roared. His veins bulged all over his body as he stared at Chun Zhao with a savage expression. But Chun Zhao looked unperturbed. Come on, use more strength. Are you using all your strength on women? The man's tendons were really about to explode. But the nature of the two was different. The burly man couldn't take it anymore. The fat content of sports athletes was generally around 3%. The fat content of athletes in endurance events was even higher, around 4% to 5%. Body fat meant a person's endurance. For example, the burly man injected steroids into his body. It would indeed make his muscles look exaggerated in a short time, but it would also make his body fat drop to the extreme, possibly below 1%. With this kind of muscle index, a person who knew how to explode could reach the world record level in a short time. But the burly man was clearly someone who only knew how to work out. Chun Zhao used some strength in his arms and pushed forward. The burly man fell 2 meters away. Chun Zhao clapped his hands. Weakling. Portia was a bit shocked. Was this burly man an actor that Chun Zhao had hired? Normally, the burly man would win for sure. How did Chun Zhao defeat him so easily? Just then, a slim and beautiful figure appeared before Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao was surprised to see Feline here again. Hee. Mr. Chun, we meet again. Chun Zhao whistled. Miss Feline, you have a great body. Feline looked at the big guy on the ground. Mr. Chun, do you feel any sense of accomplishment bullying a weakling like this? Chun Zhao narrowed his eyes. Was Feline provoking him? Mr. Chun, I also practice martial arts. How about we have a match? You? Chun Zhao tilted his head and looked at Feline. Are you sure? Of course, there's a boxing ring over there. Chun Zhao really couldn't tell that Feline was an enhancer. However, there were many types of enhancers. Chun Zhao didn't see much explosive power from Feline's muscles. Was she a speed type? However, since Fu Lin had already issued a challenge, Chun Zhao wouldn't refuse either. Miss, you better not fight with my boss. He beat that big guy to the ground. Portia felt that Chun Zhao was probably very good at fighting. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defeated the big guy even though he didn't have an advantage in size. Feline looked at Portia and smiled. She didn't think Chun Zhao could defeat her. The two went to the boxing ring. Put on your equipment in case you get hurt, Chun Zhao said. Since you don't need it, I won't either, Feline said, smiling faintly. Chun Zhao looked at Feline and took a deep breath. Fine, you attack first. Feline suddenly revealed a strange smile. In an instant, she turned into a blur and charged before Chun Zhao. Fast, very fast. Chun Zhao was surprised. Was this woman a speed type? Bang! Feline punched Chun Zhao's cheek. So strong. Chun Zhao tilted his head slightly. Speed and strength? Chun Zhao found it hard to believe. Even Chun Zhao was good at strength. Speed was an added bonus. The increase in his constitution naturally increased his speed. What Chun Zhao grew the fastest was still his strength. From a normal person now, his strength had increased by more than 1,000,000 times. However, Chun Zhao's speed had only increased by a few hundred times. The difference was obvious. But Feline's speed and strength were very close. Of course, Feline's speed and strength were far from Chen Zhao's. Portia was shocked. She couldn't tell what was going on. She didn't know that Feline's speed was completely illogical. She only knew that Chen Zhao had been beaten by Feline. Feline took a few steps back. How is it? Do you still think I need to wear equipment? Chen Zhao stroked his hair, a faint smile on his face. You've indeed exceeded my expectations, but you could try again. I didn't use my full strength just now. Feline looked at Chen Zhao, even though it was only a brief contact. Although it was only a brief contact, she could tell that Chen Zhao's defense was very outstanding. Just now, 30% of her strength had only made him tilt his head slightly. That was 1,000 kilograms of strength. Feline wasn't a pure strength type or speed type. She wasn't even a true strength type. But she believed that no strength type in the same level could match her, because her magic system was very special. She was a conversion type. If she wanted to, she could use magic to convert. For example, through conversion, she could instantly reach superhuman speed and terrifying strength. Of course, such conversion couldn't reach the absolute level of a spiritualist. However, she was able to win through the difference in comparison. Just like a famous person once said, no one in the directing circle can act better than me. No one in the actor's circle can sing better than me. No one in the singer's circle can direct better than me. Perhaps she couldn't reach the best in all aspects, but she could win through difference on the battlefield. If Chen Zhao was good at speed, she would convert to strength and defense. If Chen Zhao was good at strength, she would convert to speed. Therefore, she was naturally undefeatable. It wasn't impossible for Chen Zhao to beat her. Chen Zhao was much stronger than her. But Feline didn't think that Chen Zhao could do it. She was the top genius in North America. She'd once visited Dragon Tiger Mountain Taoism and met the supreme heavenly master, Zhang Tianyi. Not only had Zhang Tianyi given her pointers, but he'd also intended to take her as a disciple. Feline didn't dare to say that she was undefeatable among her peers, but at least Zhang Tianyi's disciples could spar with her. However, after experiencing the Eastern supernatural world, Fu Lin's horizons have been broadened. She didn't think that anyone in the North American supernatural world could compare to her. Chapter 1669. For the first time, Feline didn't use her full strength. It was mainly to test Chen Zhao's strength. But after some contact, she could basically confirm that Chen Zhao mainly focused on defense. After all, she had used a lot of strength just now. But Chen Zhao wasn't affected by her punch at all. Feline thought that Chen Zhao mainly focused on defense. Feline crooked her finger. Come, you'll be the main attacker this time. Otherwise, you won't have a chance to attack. I can't attack. Say that again when you can break through my defense. Chen Zhao snickered. Like Feline, Chen Zhao felt that he was undefeatable. On the battlefield, if a person couldn't hurt his enemy, then the enemy was already undefeatable. Portia saw Chen Zhao get hit. She was actually quite happy. Finally, someone could teach this arrogant guy a lesson. The big guy was different from Feline. When the big guy attacked Chen Zhao, Portia was worried that Chen Zhao would get hurt. On the other hand, Fu Lin attacking Chen Zhao was very satisfying. Feline looked at Chen Zhao. She had rich battle experience. In terms of strength, she rarely met a match. That was why the White Spear Gang had asked her for help. She had probably guessed Chen Zhao's thoughts. Chen Zhao probably thought that since she couldn't break his defense, he was undefeatable. The corners of Fu Lin's mouth formed an arc. It seemed that she had to teach him a lesson. She had to make him put away his ignorant thoughts. Chen Zhao realized that Feline's aura had changed. It seemed like she was going to get serious. Whoosh, Feline suddenly moved. She was so fast that it was suffocating. But in Chen Zhao's eyes, her speed was no different from a movie in slow motion. Chen Zhao tilted his head back. Feline realized that her attack had missed. He could actually dodge her attack? Feline immediately changed to a left hook. But this time, Chen Zhao's body leaned forward and Feline's fist flew past his head. Feline's expression darkened. She raised her leg and kicked at Chen Zhao's crotch. They didn't agree to only use fists anyway. Chen Zhao finally punched. Feline's mouth was wide open. Her eyeballs were about to fall out. She felt that her stomach was about to be torn apart. Holding her stomach, Feline knelt on the ground. I'm sorry. Did I go too hard? Chen Zhao looked down at Feline from above. At this moment, Feline only felt grief and resentment. You should not have held back just now. This damned fellow actually pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. Miss, are you all right? Portia was very disappointed. She had thought that Chen Zhao would be at a disadvantage. In the end, Feline was punched in the stomach. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, who was walking down the stage, with a resentful expression. This guy was too much. How could he be so heavy-handed towards a lady? He really didn't have the slightest bit of gentlemanly demeanor. Feline's expression was extremely ugly. She really couldn't stand up now. Moving her palm away, Portia saw that Feline's abdomen had turned black. Portia found a spray and sprayed it on Fu Lin's abdomen. Miss, can you walk now? I'm fine. I'm sorry my boss has gone too far, Portia said indignantly. She was completely on Feline's side. Chen Zhao didn't care what Portia thought. Fu Lin was very depressed. She was the one who started the fight. In the end, she was the one who was beaten down. In the end, the assistant even pitied him. Chen Zhao had already left the arena. He found a treadmill and ran. He didn't care what Portia thought. Plus, his relationship with Feline wasn't something Portia could understand. They weren't exactly enemies, but they weren't friends either. If Chen Zhao didn't want to use Feline to find someone, Chen Zhao would make sure that this woman who provoked him couldn't get up again. Aren't you afraid that your boss will give you trouble for helping me? Feline asked. He won't care about me, Portia said, unconcerned. Feline secretly used his spiritual vision to observe Portia. She was just an ordinary person. By the way, why did you come to New Orleans? I came with the boss, Portia said. Who knows what he's going to do? What do you mean? The second day my boss came, he wanted me to take him to the cemetery. Then he had nothing to do the whole day. Portia shook her head. She had thought about it, but she still couldn't figure out what Chen Zhao wanted to do. The boss seems to be looking for something in New Orleans. What? I don't know. He won't tell me either. Feline knew that Portia definitely didn't know much. However, she still didn't completely believe it. Who knew if Chen Zhao had purposely arranged for Portia to mislead her? Plus, she already knew that Chen Zhao was looking for the White Spear Society. By the way, what does her boss do? I don't know. I only know that he's rich. I've been working for him for less than a week. Fu Lin thought a lot, and Portia walked her to the door. What a coincidence. You live on this floor, too. I live in that room. Yeah, what a coincidence. Feline forced a smile. If you need anything, remember to call me. I'll be happy to help. Okay, thank you. Feline returned to her room. Suddenly, her expression changed. Who? She found traces of magic power in her room. Someone was using magic in her room. Feline walked forward cautiously. Come out. At that moment, a thick mist suddenly sprayed out from the mirror in the bathroom. The thick fog quickly gathered to form a woman. However, the woman seemed to be heavily injured. As soon as she appeared, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Kajia. Feline's expression changed. He hurriedly helped Kajia. What's wrong? Kajia's body swayed, and she fainted. Feline hurriedly helped Kajia to the bed and examined her. Convert mana. Feline first converted his own mana so that he could cast water magic. Spring of Life, please heal the wounds of the person before you. The Spring of Life wasn't enough to heal her injuries. In fact, she was still unconscious. Feline's heart was heavy. What exactly happened to Kajia? She was actually so heavily injured. Feline used the Spring of Life a few more times, but the effects weren't as good as the first time. There was a special magical power in Kajia's body that suppressed the Spring of Life's effects to the minimum. At the same time, it was also this magical power that worsened Kajia's injuries. Kajia finally woke up in the evening. Feline. She was very weak now. How are you now, Kajia? Feline. White Spear Association is finished. White Spear Association is completely destroyed. Kajia lost control of her emotions and collapsed. Kajia, don't cry. Tell me what happened. Chapter 1670. Dead, they're all dead. Katia sobbed, but she was very weak at the moment. Agitated, she spat out a mouthful of blood. How is that possible? Feline was shocked. The White Spear Association is so powerful. How? We were betrayed. Our leader, the White Radiance, betrayed us all. The more Katia spoke, the more agitated she became. She gathered us together and ambushed the chief protector. Then, the Satanists appeared. How is that possible? How is that possible? Lady Aimshaw is the founder of the White Spear Association. How could she? Feline could not believe that the White Radiance, Lady Aimshaw, was a traitor. This was too much of a shock for her. That traitor. She is sisters with the leader of the Satanists, Roy. This is all a conspiracy, 100% conspiracy. Katia was shocked once again. Aimshaw and Roy were sisters. I want revenge. I want revenge. 2 streaks of blood flowed down Katia's cheeks. She shed tears of blood. Feline's mind was in a mess. She was frightened by Katia's words. The White Spear Association was destroyed. Amesh's betrayal. Aimshaw and Roy were sisters? Everything that happened would make her feel bitterly disappointed. Revenge? Take revenge on Aimshaw and Roy? Revenge on Aimshaw and Roy? Did Katia have that ability? Or did she think she had a chance of winning with her? It was impossible. Feline was confident, but she was not that arrogant. She did not think the 2 of them had a chance of winning. Katia, we should take our time, Feline said calmly. She was here to help, but that did not mean she was willing to be a moth to a flame. The Satanists were a terrifying cult. Everyone in the Satanists was filled with terrifying and crazy thoughts. Moreover, every member of the Satanists had dark powers. Are you unwilling to help me? Katia raised her head and looked at Feline. I can understand. I can solve it myself. Katia, how are you going to solve it? I have my own way. We are not thinking about revenge now. We need to leave New Orleans, Feline said. I won't stop you if you want to leave, but don't stop me from getting my revenge either. That's not revenge, that's suicide, Feline growled as he grabbed Kajel's shoulder. I don't need you to care about me. Katia's eyes could not conceal the hatred in them. Perhaps I shouldn't have asked you for help. Kajal, if you have a plan, I am willing to help you. However, if you want to throw your life away, then I must stop you. Feline stared at Kajal with determination. She could see the determination to die in Kajal's eyes. That was why she had to stop Kajar even more. You haven't even recovered from your injuries yet. What reward are you talking about? Feline softened his tone and said, if you really want to take revenge, then the first thing you should do is to heal your injuries and not blindly think about revenge. Kajel's eyes were still filled with unwillingness. To her, that kind of hatred was too unforgettable. As long as she could get revenge, she was willing to pay any price. It's meaningless to die now. If you really want to avenge your comrades, then make a plan. Finally, Kajel wavered a little. Feline suddenly thought of Chun Zhao. No, that guy's identity is unknown. He can't know Kajel's identity. They had to leave now. They couldn't stay in Hilda Hotel. Kajel, let's go now, Feline said. Go. To where? Leave New Orleans. It's too dangerous here. Unwillingness flashed across Kajel's eyes. Clearly, she had not let go of the hatred in her heart. Whenever she thought of her comrades dying before her eyes, her body and mind felt as if they were being burned by flames. Huh? Chun Zhao suddenly realized that Feline had disappeared. The staff was cleaning the room that she had stayed in. Her luggage was also gone. Chun Zhao did not use the small world to monitor Feline. He had thought that Feline would only act at night. This made him neglect monitoring Feline. Chun Zhao picked up the phone. Portia. Boss, what's up? Did you send that woman back to her room today? Yes. Why? Portia did not understand why Chun Zhao would suddenly ask about Feline. Did she leave? Chun Zhao asked. Leave? Did you say that she left the hotel? Didn't she tell you? No. Go to the front desk and ask when she left, Chun Zhao said. Boss, do you want to pursue her? You seem to have a family already. I think you should be responsible for your family. Miss Portia, please don't make me repeat my order. Okay. When Portia walked past Feline's door, she saw that her room was open and the staff was cleaning it. She was a bit disappointed. She had thought that she and Feline had a good relationship. At least they were friends. But when Feline left, he did not tell her at all. After asking at the front desk, she confirmed it too. Feline had indeed checked out. She had been gone for more than an hour. Boss, Miss Feline has indeed left for more than an hour. Chen Zhao was even more disappointed. Feline was a good lead. Forget it. Even without her, he could find it. Call Lerberg and Hampson and ask how the things I asked them to do are going. Okay. Portia was more curious about what Chen Zhao wanted. After a series of questions, Portia replied to Chen Zhao. Boss, Mr. Lerberg said that the news you requested will be on tonight's evening news. Mr. Hampson said that tomorrow's headlines will also be the news you requested. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded. Boss, what news do you want them to broadcast? Portia could not hold back her curiosity. None of your business. Also, I told Sam and Vicari that they don't need to go out tonight. Chen Zhao planned to go to the abandoned toll station on the Seabrook Coastal Highway himself. Since the White Spear Society was fighting against Satanism, then they would probably care about the supernatural incidents in New Orleans. If a supernatural incident caused an uproar in the city, they would definitely not stand by and do nothing. That was Chen Zhao's plan. After dinner, Chen Zhao kept staring at the New Orleans Channel's news. As expected, a piece of news appeared. It was the news that Chen Zhao had requested. Lerberg had also gotten someone to shoot a blurry video and put in the news. Chen Zhao was quite satisfied with Lerberg's actions. Chapter 1671. Portia saw the news too. She turned to look at Chen Zhao, who was eating dinner. Chen Zhao had been eating since evening. Portia didn't know how much Chen Zhao had eaten. 10 portions? 20 portions? Is it this news? Portia saw Chen Zhao's expression. She could roughly confirm that it was this piece of news. However, she didn't understand why Chen Zhao had asked Lerberg to broadcast this obviously fake news. To create social panic? How bored was Chen Zhao? Why would he want to create social panic? Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't explain it to Portia. Pack up. I'm going out for a walk. Boss, do you need me to go with you? No, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Chen Zhao drove to the abandoned toll station on the Seabrook Coast Highway. There was very little traffic on the road at night. Chen Zhao parked the car by the roadside. He hoped that his method would work. If it didn't work, he would have to do it himself. Chen Zhao had originally planned to create a supernatural event if it didn't work. Then he would create a supernatural event himself. However, it would definitely have a negative impact. If it wasn't necessary, Chen Zhao wouldn't do it. Suddenly, Chen Zhao saw two figures dressed strangely. They had searchlights on their heads and strange equipment on their bodies. They even carried a square box on their backs. One of them was also holding a device. The two were walking toward the abandoned toll station. Chen Zhao perked up. They're here? Wait, why don't they have magic? Vander Seer and Jamet were both supernatural enthusiasts. They even had a website. They'd come because of the news. They hoped to get material here. Vander Seer held the device he'd made. They called it a soul detector. Jamet was holding a video camera. Vander Seer, do you think we can succeed? I think it should be fine, Vander Seer said. The news is on TV. People were attacked by evil spirits here, so it must be true. If we can get some useful material and put on our website, it'll be popular. But what if the evil spirits attack us? Don't worry, Jamet said. We have equipment. If we encounter danger, we just need to press a button and our clothes will be electrified. Are you sure our electrified clothes will work on evil spirits? I think so, Jamet said. We're not doing research. The soul should be some kind of magnetic energy. This magnetic energy is in an unstable state. If this magnetic energy comes into contact with the electric current, it will increase this unstable state. But these are all your speculations. Jamet and Vandersel didn't know that Chen Zhao had overheard their conversation. Chen Zhao secretly chuckled. That Jamet guy's analysis was pretty close to the truth. However, their understanding of evil spirits was still insufficient. Evil spirits were indeed a form of magnetic energy, but they will interfere with other energy fields. For example, when some evil spirits appeared, they could affect the normal use of some electrical appliances. Suddenly, the needle of the instrument in Vander Seer's hand started to jump. An evil spirit had appeared. Both Vander Sar and Jamet tensed up. Where is it? Where is it? A figure was approaching them, but they couldn't see it. As the figure got closer and closer, the needle on the meter jumped even more frantically. At this moment, the square backpacks on their backs suddenly emitted a burst of green smoke. Oh no, there's a malfunction. The two hurriedly took off their backpacks. The backpack was the battery that they carried with them. It was used to power the devices on them. But strangely, even though they'd lost power, the needle on the instrument in van der Sar's hand was still jumping. That's weird. Why is the detector still working? Suddenly, the abandoned toll station behind them lit up. Both of them were startled and looked at the abandoned toll station. There was a figure standing inside. It was a charred body. Black smoke was rising from the figure's body. That's... Both Jomet and van der Sar were frightened, even though their goal was to find a ghost. But when they really faced a ghost, they were still filled with boundless fear. Chen Zhao watched from the side and didn't interfere. Did you record it? Van der Sar asked in fear. Even though they were about to piss their pants, they still didn't plan on running. The camera seems abnormal. The camera's monitor kept flashing. Suddenly, there was an explosive sound from the camera. Then a burst of green smoke rose. It was burnt. The magnetic field on the evil spirit had already caused all their instruments to malfunction. So hot. So hot. Chen Zhao realized that they seemed to have fallen into an environment created by the evil spirit. Chen Zhao touched his chin. Should he interfere? After all, they were ordinary people. Chen Zhao's duty was to not let ordinary people get involved in supernatural events. Moreover, these two ordinary people had come here. In the end, it was all because of Chen Zhao. Just as Chen Zhao was hesitating, another figure appeared. Chen Zhao's eyes brightened. Spiritualist. Which? Sam Mira rushed to the abandoned toll station with surprising speed. God avoid. Please reach out with your dark tentacles and pull these two innocent souls out of their confusion. Sam Mira chanted an incantation. Two dark tentacles reached out from the darkness and slapped the two of them. Their eyes cleared up immediately. But in that instant, they broke down and screamed as they ran away. They had just faced the car accident that had happened before. Just like the evil spirit, they felt the same way. Sam Mira looked at the evil spirit in the toll station. Ancient God, dispel the unclean with your light of wisdom. Chen Zhao saw the witch's magic. She was probably using the ancient god's magic. It was a system different from demon magic. They were using the power of the ancient god. The ancient god that Sam Mira borrowed was the ancient god of light. The surrounding elements started transforming into a radiant body. The radiant body grabbed the evil spirit. The evil spirit struggled, but it couldn't break free of the radiant body. Gradually, the unclean on the evil spirit was dispelled, and its body was assimilated. In the West, this method was called purification. In the East, it was called transcendence or ascension. Simply put, it was turning the evil spirit's soul into pure light. It was just a method to kill the evil spirit. Religion, however, has always assigned a sacred name to this mode of destruction. Nine Heavens God Emperor. Chapter 1672. Who is it? Sam Mira realized that another person had come. When he turned around, he realized that it was an Asian. Who are you? Like you, I'm a spiritualist. I saw this news on the news, so I came to exorcise the evil spirit. Chen Zhao shamelessly said the script he'd prepared. I see. Sam Mira looked at Chen Zhao, no longer suspecting him. Are you a local spiritualist? Chen Zhao asked. No, I'm here to travel, Sam Mira said. Chen Zhao's expression collapsed. I got scammed just like that? Fuck, I spent millions of dollars. I got scammed again. Sam Mira saw the disappointment in Chen Zhao's eyes. She didn't understand where Chen Zhao's disappointment came from. However, Chen Zhao clearly didn't want to waste any more time. He turned around and left. Why are you leaving? Didn't you already destroy the evil spirit? There's no point in me staying here. Chen Zhao didn't even want to talk to her anymore. Anyway, he was very disappointed. But on second thought, he realized that he could stay here. No one would know that the evil spirit had been destroyed anyway. Suddenly, Chen Zhao thought of another idea. If he couldn't find them tonight, he could find the evil spirit group in the association. Sam Mira saw Chen Zhao return to the car. She remembered that she'd seen the car when she'd come. This person had been here for a long time. He'd also seen the two people being attacked, but hadn't done anything. He'd only appeared after she'd appeared. This was too strange. What was his goal? Samira couldn't figure out Chun Zhao's goal. Perhaps she should test him. Samira walked to Chun Zhao's car. "Sir, how should I address you?" "My surname is Chun." "Mr. Chun, you have other motives, don't you?" Samira asked bluntly. Chun Zhao sat in the car and glanced at Samira. "Where are you from?" "Washington. You're a local spiritualist?" "I'm also here for fun. I'm from Los Angeles," Chun Zhao said. "You've been here for a long time, but you didn't do anything to protect those two people. What do you want?" Samila's tone was a little interrogative. "That evil spirit is not fatal. What's wrong with teaching them a lesson so that they won't risk their heads in the future?" Although Chun Zhao's explanation made sense, Samira still felt that it wasn't as reasonable as it seemed. "But don't you think that would be dangerous?" "We're all adults," Chun Zhao said nonchalantly. "I'm not a volunteer police officer. If they were really in danger, Chun Zhao would really help." But the facts also proved that they did not really encounter a fatal threat. That evil spirit wasn't deadly in the first place. But the news has already reported that someone was attacked here and died. That's why I came to take a look. But as a spiritualist, shouldn't we protect ordinary people? I heard that the evil spirits here have existed for a long time. Why haven't the local spiritualists exterminated them? You want me and you, an outsider, to take care of it after something really happens? Chun Zhao smiled, his face full of disdain. Actually, in Los Angeles, the supernatural organization and the idol spiritualists maintained a tacit understanding. As long as evil spirits did not do evil, they would not actively exterminate them. If it was just a small prank, the local spiritualists would most likely chase it away, not exterminate it. Unless there were casualties, the spiritualists would not kill. This was because there were many evil spirit organizations in the world. For example, the Evil Spirit Society that had ruled the underground world for 200 years in New York. If they really exterminated evil spirits on a large scale, they would eventually suffer revenge from the organization. Evil spirits were produced almost every day, but it took 10 to 20 years to nurture a qualified human spiritualist. Thus, in the spiritual world, humans and evil spirits always maintained a balance of not interfering with each other. Thus, Chun Zhao's accusation was even more groundless. Just then, two more people appeared in Chun Zhao's vision. Chun Zhao perked up. Samira noticed Chun Zhao's gaze. Turning his head, he saw two spiritualists approaching the abandoned toll station. Chun Zhao immediately perked up. He got out of the car and walked toward the two spiritualists. "Hey, are you local spiritualists?" Chun Zhao asked. Sabonis and Rashid exchanged glances. Vigilance appeared on their faces. Sabonis glanced at Chun Zhao and then at Samira. "Who are you? You're not a local spiritualist. I don't think I've seen you before." Hearing Sabonis' words, Chun Zhao's face finally brightened. "Are you from the White Spear Society?" "No, I've never heard of it." Sabonis and Rashid exchanged a subtle look and turned to leave. More accurately, they were running away. "Wait." Chun Zhao grabbed Sabonis and Rashid with both hands. "Let go." Sabonis and Rashid did not seem to want to talk to Chun Zhao. They seemed to be in a hurry. "If you don't let go, we won't be polite. You should seriously consider my suggestion," Chun Zhao said with a faint smile. Sabonis attacked Chun Zhao directly. Death Poison Mist. Curse plus Voodoo Magic. That was a new and interesting spell. Actually, the so-called new spell was different from traditional demonic spells. It was not a spell that relied on complicated spells. Instead, it was just a combination of two spells. As long as Chun Zhao could solve the problem of releasing two spells at the same time, there would be no more difficulties. Chun Zhao inhaled heavily and sucked the poison mist into his mouth. Sabonis, Rashid, and Samira behind them were all shocked. Chun Zhao actually sucked the evil spell into his mouth. It was like a person drinking a bottle of sulfuric acid. "It tastes good." Chun Zhao smiled. Rashid's expression darkened. His body suddenly turned into an ice cube. Cold air flowed along Chun Zhao's palm and soon froze his arm. Still not letting go, Chun Zhao only used a bit of force, and the ice on his arm shattered. If you think you can win with this temperature, you're very wrong. Sir, I think you should control yourself, Samira said. You look like an evil spiritualist. Hearing Samira's words, Sabonis and Rashid realized that the witch was not with Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao turned around and glanced at Samira. He felt that the woman was about to attack him. Miss Witch, this is between me and them. It has nothing to do with you. Chapter 1673. It matters now. Samira stared at Chun Zhao coldly. She could feel that Chun Zhao's intentions were very unclear. When she'd appeared, he'd actively approached her. Then he'd actively approached Sabonis and Rashid. After learning that they were local spiritualists in New Orleans, he'd attacked them. This made Samira feel that it was Chun Zhao's scheme. In reality, she wasn't wrong. It was all Chun Zhao's scheme. If you want to find them, you should let them go, not catch them. Sorry, that's my style. Chun Zhao clearly didn't plan on letting them go. He'd spent so much effort to catch two local spiritualists. When talking about the White Spear Society, the two clearly had strange expressions. So, even if they weren't from the White Spear Society, they definitely knew about it. A figure formed by black and white energy appeared behind Samira. I hate such barbaric behavior. Samira was making her stand clear. If Chun Zhao continued to catch them, she'd attack. Suddenly, Samira's feet sank. Then, Samira found that his legs were bound by some black and red substance. The dark lava kept spreading upward. Soon, Samira was wrapped up like a dumpling and her mouth was sealed. Samira wasn't weak. In fact, she was very strong. But she didn't take Chun Zhao seriously enough. More importantly, the difference in their abilities was too great. Chun Zhao rarely used the dark lava as his main attack method. It wasn't that the dark lava wasn't strong enough. It was just that he didn't need it. The greatest use of the dark lava was to deal with a large number of enemies. It could be used as a control method or to strengthen one's body through dark assimilation. Miss Witch, I hope you can understand that I don't want to hurt you, but that doesn't mean I don't dare to. A sharp spike formed from dark magma was pointed at Samira's forehead. If you can understand, then I'll let you go. If you don't, then I can only send you to the God you believe in. Samira nodded, fear in her eyes. No one could face death without fear. Lowering one's head wasn't a sign of weakness. Samira could tell that Chun Zhao was someone who often killed people. Chun Zhao let go of Samira. Samira didn't attack Chun Zhao after he let go. Instead, he turned and left. Chun Zhao glanced at Samira. She was a smart woman. However, Chun Zhao's display of strength had worked. It was enough to scare Sabonis and Rashid. Chun Zhao turned to look at the two. I hope the rest of our conversation will go smoothly. Okay? Dark magma spread beneath their feet. The two of them hurriedly nodded. Are you from the White Spear Society? Chun Zhao asked. No. We have nothing to do with the White Spear gang. Sabonis and Rashid quickly shook their heads, horror written all over their faces. It felt as if they would die if they were members of the White Spear Association. Then are you from Satanism? The two of them shook their heads again. Their faces were filled with even more fear. However, it was different from before. Do you know where we can find people from the White Spear Association? Sabonis and Rashid shook their heads frantically. We don't know. We have nothing to do with the White Spear Association. Narrowing his eyes, Chun Zhao asked, did something big happen in the spiritual world of New Orleans? Is it related to the White Spear Association and Satanism? Sabonis and Rashid exchanged glances. Sabonis asked tentatively, you really don't know? I don't know, Chun Zhao said honestly. You're not from Satanism? Although my trip to New Orleans this time is related to the White Spear Society and Satanism, I'm not a member of these two organizations. No matter what you say about these two organizations, I don't care. I just want to find them. Sabonis and Rashid secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still didn't dare to believe Chun Zhao completely. Why do you want to find these two organizations? Actually, I want to find Satanism the most, but I heard that the White Spear Association and Satanism are mortal enemies, so I want to find Satanism through the White Spear Association. Of course, It would be best if you can directly provide me with information about Satanism. No one knows where the headquarters of the satanic cult is, and the White Spear Society that you're looking for has already been destroyed by the satanic cult. Just 2 weeks ago, more than 100 core members of the White Spear Society were all killed. After that, the satanic cult started hunting down the remaining members of the White Spear Society. All the spiritualists in New Orleans are in danger. The entire White Spear Association died? Chun Zhao frowned. Didn't I hear that the White Spear Association and Satanism are evenly matched? How did they suddenly get destroyed? Chun Zhao had heard from the handsome guy that the White Spear Association and Satanism had been enemies for more than 20 years. Logically speaking, Satanism shouldn't have the absolute power to destroy the White Spear Association. We don't know. We're just idle spiritualists. We don't know much about these two organizations. We've already told you everything we know. Please let us go. You said that Satanism is hunting the remaining members of the White Spear Association in New Orleans, right? Chun Zhao asked. We haven't seen them, but the news has been spreading in the spiritual world. You should have your own sources, right? Every spiritualist would definitely have companions that they would cross paths with in their local area. They were no exception. The two were unwilling to admit it, but they couldn't deny it. Then it's impossible that you don't know where Satanism is, Chun Zhao said. A large number of spiritualists were active in New Orleans. It was impossible that the local spiritualists didn't know. Recently, the police have been setting up checkpoints on all the main roads, Sabonis said. They say they're hunting fugitives to prevent them from escaping, but there haven't been any major cases in the city. Of course, the big explosion 2 nights ago doesn't count. Rashid added, the person who issued the order seems to be the director of the New Orleans Police Department. Is there a problem with the director? I'm not sure, Rashid said. Only then did Chun Zhao let go of the two. When they were about to leave, Chun Zhao said, do you want to make money? You want us to help you find information about Satanism? Yes. Didn't you say that a large number of Satanism members are active in the city? Find one, and I'll give you $10,000. $10,000 was not a small amount. Most spiritualists weren't rich. Sabonis and Rashid weren't rich either. Chapter 1674. Sabonis and Rashid reluctantly agreed to the deal. It was risky, but they were still tempted. Even if it was only $10,000, it was a huge sum for them. At first, they'd heard Chun Zhao mention the White Spear Society. They thought that Chun Zhao was from Satanism and thought that they were from the White Spear Society. That was why they'd been so terrified. After confirming that Chun Zhao wasn't from Satanism, they heaved a sigh of relief. However, they didn't dare to fool Chun Zhao. They didn't dare to fool Chun Zhao. Night. Fan Gannon enjoyed the darkness. In the past, he'd always respected justice and followed fairness. In the past, he advocated justice and followed fairness. He'd almost lost his life. Then a demon came to him. He'd almost lost his life. Then a demon came to him. He'd asked if he'd sold his soul to the demon. He didn't want to die. He was afraid of death. So he'd accepted the deal. He'd sold his soul to the demon. Of course, the demon had given him a second life. He'd been saved. Then his career kept rising. From an ordinary cop, he'd become the chief of the New Orleans Police Department in a short time. Whenever he had competitors, they'd create all sorts of scandals. Or they'd get some weird disease. He'd started to enjoy it. It was as if his past pursuits were ridiculous. 30 years had passed. He'd gotten old, but he was still full of energy. He was even stronger than 30 years ago. Just then, Fan Gannon heard heavy footsteps. Fan Gannon jumped up from his chair. At the same time, he found the gun in the drawer. He divorced long ago. He was the only one at home. There wouldn't be a second person. Who was it? Was it a thief? Fan Gannon looked at the door calmly. The footsteps got closer and closer. It suddenly stopped outside the door. Fan Gannon took a deep breath. As long as the person opened the door, he could shoot immediately. He had every reason and every right to shoot. But the door didn't open. It was completely silent outside. Suddenly, Fan Gannon felt something on his shoulder. A hand was on Fan Gannon's shoulder. "Hello, Mr. Chief." Fan Gannon raised his arm and pointed the gun at the back of his shoulder. But before he could shoot, His hand and gun were crushed at the same time. Whoa! Fan Ganon wanted to scream, but his mouth was covered. Shoo! Chun Zhao shushed them. Don't disturb the neighbors' sleep. If it was somewhere else, he wouldn't care if they shot him. But this was a residential area, and it was nighttime. The sound of a gunshot was very loud. Chun Zhao closed the curtains. The room instantly became pitch black. Who are you? Fan Ganon was pushed to the ground, and he looked at the figure in the dark in fear. Can you tell me how you contact Satanism? Chun Zhao asked. What's Satanism? It seems like you don't want to talk. It's okay. I will find a way to make you talk. Van Ganon soon gave in. It was true that he sold his soul to the devil. But he didn't have an iron will. Otherwise, he wouldn't have abandoned his faith in the face of death. However, to his disappointment, Fan Ganon could not provide him with any clues. Although he was working for the Church of Satan, but he didn't even know about the existence of Satanism. He simply thought that he had sold his soul to the devil. In reality, this was just a small trick of the Church of Satan. Even Chun Zhao could do better than the Church of Satan. Not to mention the devil. Chun Zhao could even disguise himself as an emperor. Chun Zhao didn't plan on letting the police chief off. The next day, Fan Ganon's body was found in his home. Chun Zhao had even left a bloody word: revenge. Since the White Spear Society was destroyed by the Church of Satan, then Chun Zhao would disguise himself as the White Spear Society and take revenge on the Church of Satan. Of course, as expected, the murder caused a stir in the entire city. Sabonis and Rashid had already seen the news. They glanced at each other, but didn't speak. As expected, he had attacked Mr. Fan Ganon, and he had purposely made a big deal out of it. He probably wanted to attract the attention of the Church of Satan. Both of them felt that Chun Zhao's actions were too risky. After all, it was the Church of Satan. Chun Zhao was just one person. In their eyes, no matter how powerful a person was, he couldn't defeat the Church of Satan. Of course, they wouldn't try to persuade him. They had only met by chance. They weren't even friends. They could only say that they weren't enemies. Soon, they received a piece of information. Mr. Chun, we found out something. Yeah, tell me about it. We found a place that seems to be a gathering place for the Church of Satan, but there seems to be a lot of people there. How many people? More than 20. Send me your bank account numbers. Portia, transfer $300,000 to this account. Portia was already used to Chun Zhao's wasteful spending. Chun Zhao had disappeared for the entire night. She didn't know where he went. Anyway, she felt that her boss was becoming more and more mysterious. Chun Zhao would never explain anything to her. Oh, call Sam and Vicari over. Sir, why did you call us? In the past 2 days, Chun Zhao didn't ask them to monitor the two places. They felt that they might soon return to the state of unemployment in the past. This disappointed them, but they also felt helpless. They knew that this day would come sooner or later. Here's $20,000. Chun Zhao tossed 2 stacks of cash on the table. You've been working for me these days. I'm not satisfied with the results, but I promise to pay you. Sir, I want to continue working for you. Sam and Vicari didn't take the $20,000. There's nothing you can help me with. Chun Zhao rejected their request directly. Take the $20,000 and find a proper job. I hope that I won't see you in prison the next time I come to New Orleans. Chapter 1675. In the evening, Sabonis and Rashid finally saw Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, it's the building in front. It wasn't a suburb, but there was a rather run-down building here. Even if there was an unfinished building in this area, the city government probably wouldn't tolerate it. Either he would find someone to take over, or he would tear down the unfinished building and sell the land. Is everyone inside? Chun Zhao looked in the direction of the building from 1,000 meters away. Yes, they only move at night. They have a lot of people. Sabonis glanced at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, you came alone? Rashid also looked worried. Before Chun Zhao came, they'd already explained the situation in as much detail as possible. They hoped that Chun Zhao could be taken seriously. But Chun Zhao still came alone. They didn't think that Chun Zhao could do anything alone. Does he think he can defeat so many Satanists by himself? Those crazy and cruel evil spiritualists. Don't worry, Chun Zhao said calmly. I'm going in. Mr. Chun, you're really going in alone? Sabonis called. He really didn't want Chunjiao to die. Chunjiao stopped and turned to look at the two. You two accompany me? Ha! Mr. Chun, don't joke around. I think it's still early. How about we wait until it's dark? What a joke. If you're going to die, we're not going to die with you. No need. I'm in a hurry. Chunjiao shrugged and walked into the building alone. Sabonis, are we still going to wait here? Rashid asked hesitantly. What else? I'm afraid that when the Satanists come out and see us, we'll be in trouble. Rashid's face was filled with fear. Wait a little longer. If that person doesn't come out in an hour, we'll leave. Maybe he's already dead inside. Rashid wasn't gloating. He also hoped that Chunjiao wouldn't die inside. That way, they could continue to sell information and earn money. They even regretted giving the information to Chunjiao so early. But even if they wanted to stay out of it, things might not go their way. A woman appeared behind them. She ambushed them without any warning. Rashid was attacked from behind and fell to the ground. His back was a bloody mess. Sabonis, be careful. Fortunately, Sabonis reacted quickly and released a spell in an instant. The woman quickly retreated. The woman's palms had sharp claws like those of a lizard, and the back of her hands was covered with a layer of scales. Rashid, how are you? Don't get scratched by her claws. Her claws are poisonous, Rashid said painfully. Miss, is there a misunderstanding between us? Sabonis looked at the woman warily. The woman licked the blood on her claws and looked at them coldly. Since you're here, it means that you know where this is. There's no misunderstanding between us. The woman was gradually transforming into a lizard man. His skin was covered with scales. A green tail grew out of her back. Rashid and Sabonis groaned in their hearts. They had long heard that the Satanists had some kind of magic that allowed them to transform into lizard men. Now, they had finally confirmed the authenticity of this rumor. Debilitating poison mist. Sabonis immediately released a spell at the woman. The woman was agile and fast. With a push of her legs, she jumped several meters and climbed onto the wall of the building behind her. Like a gecko, she stuck to the wall. To her, there was no difference between being on the wall and the ground. Sabonis did not want to fight with the female lizard. Once the Satanists found out about their battle, they would never be able to leave. Right now, Sabonis and Rashid only hoped that Chunjiao could last longer. The female lizard did not attack immediately. She was waiting for the sky to turn dark. Nighttime was her home ground. The sun had already set. It won't be long before it gets dark, so she was not in a hurry. She only had to watch the two and not let them escape. Sabonis wanted to escape, but Rashid was heavily injured. Unless Sabonis left Rashid behind. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to leave. Suddenly, the female lizard stuck her tongue out at Rashid from a few meters away. Sabonis and Rashid did not expect the female lizard to shoot her tongue so far. Her tongue immediately curled around Rashid's calf. Rashid felt a great power. The female lizard was very strong. She was even stronger than Enhancer spiritualists. Although Rashid was seriously injured at the moment, but it did not mean that he could not fight back at all. Rashid immediately turned himself into an Iceman. The female lizard immediately retracted her tongue. Her tongue could not withstand such a low temperature either. She was not a real lizard, but she had turned herself from a mammal to a cold-blooded animal. The temperature affected her greatly. She realized that she might not be able to defeat Rashid and Sabonis alone. She had been calling for her companions, but humans cannot hear it. It was a low-frequency sound. But after waiting for a long time, her companions did not come out. Damn it! What were they doing? Why were they not coming out? Or rather, they were already nearby, but they did not come out on purpose. Were they watching him embarrass himself? Sabonis did not dare to act rashly. He was not confident that he could defeat the female lizard. Rashid could only barely protect himself now. At this time, the sky had turned completely dark, and there were no street lights in this area. The female lizard suddenly disappeared from the wall. Sabonis and Rashid cursed inwardly. Although it was not completely dark now, the light had a great impact on their vision. Sabonis suddenly felt his feet being pulled heavily, and he lost his balance. The female lizard had wrapped her tongue around Sabonis' calf and quickly pulled him in front of her. Under such a pull, Sabonis could not release magic even if he wanted to. Chapter 1676. Just as Sabonis and Rashid were dumbfounded, they saw a figure walk over from the front. When they saw clearly that it was Chun Zhao, they were both confused. Chun Zhao must have dragged the female lizard into the darkness, right? Mr. Chun, luckily you didn't act rashly. I think we should plan this carefully. Mr. Chun, it's a good thing you didn't act rashly. I think we should discuss this further. Sabonis secretly rejoiced that Chun Zhao had chosen to retreat. He had also come out to save his life. Otherwise, he and Rashid would have to pay the price here. Do me a favor and spread the news of what's going on in the spiritual world of New Orleans. What's going on inside? Rashid and Sabonis were both confused. You can go in and take a look. When Chun Zhao walked past the two of them, the two covered their noses and took a step back. The stench on Chun Zhao was too strong. It was as if he had just soaked in a vat of fresh blood. The two couldn't help but exchange glances. They looked at the building before them. The building was silent, but it gave off an unsettling aura. Chun Zhao left, but the two were still hesitant. They couldn't go in, but they couldn't stay either. Should we go in and take a look? But it's a gathering place for Satanists. But what that person said, impossible. How long has it been? At least half an hour? There are more than 20 Satanists inside. But there's still no movement inside. Do you want to go in and take a look? The two discussed for a while and finally decided to go in and take a look. The first thing they saw was the corpse of the female lizard from before. Her head had been crushed. Her claws had left a scorch mark on the ground. The two didn't linger before the corpse and continued walking inside. When they reached the entrance, they saw another headless corpse. It wasn't that the man hadn't come in. It was already over. When the two entered the building, the entire place was filled with a strong stench of blood. Broken walls were everywhere, and broken limbs were everywhere. Did that man kill all the Satanists here? The two of them walked up and down in a circle. They were finally sure that no one was left alive. There was a line of bright red words on the wall in front of the entrance. Revenge. Revenge? Could this man be from the White Spear Association? That's not right. He even asked me about the White Spear Association. Or perhaps he had an old grudge against Satanism. Originally, he came to New Orleans to cooperate with the White Spear Association. In the end, it was said that the White Spear Association was destroyed. So he decided to act alone? If that was the case, it made sense. However, this man was too scary. He single-handedly slaughtered so many Satanists. Fortunately, they didn't have any further conflict with Chun Zhao yesterday. What Chun Zhao was doing now was waiting for the hare to come to him. The Satanists did not know where their leader was. But the good news was that with Sabonis and Rashid's help, they had no way to escape. Word had spread that he was hunting down Satanists. Now, everyone in the supernatural world in New Orleans knew about this. Furthermore, the two of them provided a few more gathering points for the Satanists. Chun Zhao killed another dozen Satanists in a random manner. But the downside was that this matter had also caused quite a stir among ordinary people. After all, the police chief had been killed first. Then, more people were brutally murdered. Chun Zhao didn't hide the scene, so the entire city was in a state of panic. Even the local gangs kept a low profile. They didn't want to be implicated. After all the police in the city were going crazy. They were searching for clues like crazy. Sabonis and Rashid had a good time these 2 days. They didn't have to take any risks. At least, they didn't have to face the Satanists. The only thing they had to do was find out where the Satanists were and tell Chun Zhao. They didn't have to worry about anything else. Mr. Chien-san, is our boat ready? Feline asked. Yes, we can leave tomorrow night. Chien-san nodded. All transportation methods have been blocked by the Satanists. This meant that Feline and Kajar could only leave by water. Even if the Satanists wanted to block the sea, they couldn't. After all, there were many yacht ports here. Hundreds of yachts entered and left every day. No matter how powerful the Satanists were, they couldn't search every ship. Kajar sat at the side with a cold expression. She ignored Feline and Chien-sen's conversation. Ms. Kajar, you don't have to be like that. Speaking of which, something happened outside these 2 days. Maybe you'll be happy. What? Kajar asked, looking up. She really couldn't think of anything that could make her happy. Someone's been hunting the Satanists in New Orleans these 2 days. Oh. Feline and Kajar both looked at Chien Sr. What happened? I don't know the details. Chien's son shook his head. There's a rumor in the circle that it might be the White Spear Society's retaliation and revenge. Anyway, at least 40 Satanists were killed in these 2 days. The scene was bloody. All of them left one line: revenge. Feline looked at Kajar in shock. The White Spear Society still has people left? Kajar fell silent. She knew the White Spear Society very well. After all, she'd grown up in the White Spear Society. How many people did the White Spear Society have? How much power did they have? She could guess 80 to 90% of it. Perhaps the White Spear Society hadn't all died, but it was no different from being destroyed. Even if there were only 2 or 3 kittens left, most of them would be hiding like he was doing now. How could they have the strength to fight back against the Satanists? Chien's son, you're not lying to me, are you? Is there a need for me to? The entire spiritual world in New Orleans is frightened now. The culprit is extremely cruel. It's obvious that he has a deep grudge against the Satanists. I'm not leaving, Kajar suddenly said resolutely. I'm staying. Since someone has the courage to fight back against the Satanists, I won't be a coward. I'll take revenge on the Satanists too. Kajar, you're crazy. I'm not crazy, Kajar said firmly. If I continue to run away like this, it will drive me crazy, Kajel said resolutely. Kajar looked at Feline. Feline, go. I don't need you to care about me. I know what I'm doing. How do you want me to form a team? Feline sighed. Are you willing to stay and help me? Do I have any other choice? Feline felt that if he stayed, he could at least help Kajar at a critical moment. Feline looked at Kajar. But you have to promise me that you can't be impulsive. Chapter 1677. It was 300 kilometers west of New Orleans. It used to be a busy town. It had a population of thousands. But this town had been destroyed by a plague 30 years ago. None of the thousands of people survived. Not only that, the town had been completely sealed. No one could enter this town anymore. At least no one could enter through normal means. But now, this town had become the headquarters of the Satanists. In the center of the town was originally the town government. Now, it had become the Satanist demon church. Roy wore a black silk dress and knelt in front of a ferocious-looking demon statue, praying. In comparison, Aimshot didn't have any respect for the demon statue. She didn't believe in Satan either. She didn't betray her white spear because of her sisterly relationship with Roy. All they did was make a deal. After a while, Roy finished praying. She stood up and turned to look at Aimshah. Aimshah, are there any strong people in the White Spear Society? Strong people? Aimshah was stunned. No. To facilitate your plan, I gathered all the spiritualists who could pose a threat to you. Even if a few escaped, they're just rats. Today, I heard from my subordinates that someone has slaughtered my followers in New Orleans, and the culprit is very strong. Nearly 50 of the followers deployed in New Orleans have returned to Master's arms. The culprit's purpose is very clear: revenge. That's the word left near every sacrificed follower. That's impossible. Even if all the remaining rats come together, they won't be able to kill 50 of your subordinates. But that's the truth. Many of my children are dead or injured. Are you suspecting that I'm hiding the strength of the White Spear Society? That's a baseless suspicion. I have no reason to do so. It won't do me any good. That's why I'm curious too. Roy stared at her sister. Roy had always been wary of Aimshah, because in her eyes, her sister Aimshah was the true evil. She was a person with no faith. Whether it was in the past or now, she only pursued one thing. That was great power. She could betray the entire world for her own benefit without hesitation. Like this betrayal of the White Spear Society. She was the one who established the White Spear Society. And she didn't establish the White Spear Society to protect justice. It was just to create trouble for him. Roy believed that if someone offered her enough benefits, Aimshah would betray him without hesitation. That was why Royer was suspicious. His men were attacked in New Orleans. Could it be a Mesh's trick? You still doubt me. Shouldn't I doubt you? Fine, I think I need to prove myself. Aimsha shrugged. Give me the information you have, and I'll solve the problem. By the way, if possible, bring them back alive, Roy said. All right, I'll try my best, but I can't guarantee anything. You can use my people as you please. Roy paused for a moment before continuing. Even if you can't bring them back alive, at least bring back their corpses. Even if he died, Roy had a way to make him speak. When the time came, he would know who he was dealing with, and whether it was a conspiracy of Aimsha. Aimsha knew that his sister was suspicious of him, but no matter how suspicious she was, in the end, she could not leave him. Aimsha was also curious. Who were the people causing trouble in New Orleans? Were they really from the White Spear Society? There didn't seem to be such people in the White Spear Society anymore. The corpses of his former subordinates were all sent here. He had identified them too. Aimsha had a pretty good idea of who was left. If it was someone who could pose a threat to her, Aimsha would definitely not let them go. Boss, when are we going back to Los Angeles? Not sure. Chen Zhao replied nonchalantly. Why? Is there something urgent? Boss, didn't you see the news? Recently, a murderer appeared in New Orleans. He's killing people everywhere. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. You definitely don't know that the murderer is right in front of you. As long as you don't leave the hotel casually, Chen Zhao said calmly. The murderer won't come to the hotel to kill people. Not necessarily. He's definitely a lunatic. Since he's a lunatic, who knows if he'll come to the hotel to kill people? How do you know it's a madman? I saw it on the news. Every murder scene has the word revenge written on it. This means that the other party didn't kill people randomly, but took revenge with a purpose. It might be a gang dispute. Anyway, it has nothing to do with us. Why do you care so much? Portia did not think so. Gang vendetta? After all, she had grown up in New Orleans. She knew what the local gangs were like. Even the most arrogant gang would not dare to kill people so recklessly. It was like they were challenging the police or even the government. Only a crazy person would dare to do such a thing. Anyway, she did not want to stay here. A few days ago, there was an earth-shattering explosion on the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge. The man-made island on Lake Pontchartrain had become history. When she had money, she would bring her family to Los Angeles. She definitely could not stay in this chaotic city. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone rang. Portia immediately went over and picked it up. Hello, I'm Mr. Chen's assistant. May I know who you are? I'm looking for Mr. Chen. Boss, it's for you. Chen took the phone. Who is it? Mr. Chen, it's me, Sabonis. Okay, go ahead. Mr. Chen, there's news that a motorcade entered New Orleans. Someone recognized one of them as Aimsha, the former leader of the White Spear Gang. Chen covered the phone and said to Portia, Go out first. Remember to close the door. After Portia left the room, Chen asked, Didn't you say that the White Spear Gang was destroyed? The president of White Spear Society is still alive. I don't know the situation. Do you know where they're staying? They're staying in the French district. There's a lot of them, around 100. Got it. Send me their exact location. Soon, Chen Zhao received the address from Sabonis. Chen called Portia in. Portia, transfer 1 million to the account from yesterday. Okay, boss. For the past 2 days, Portia had been transferring money to the account Chen provided intermittently. Sometimes it was tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands. Chapter 1678. Kajar and Feline stopped in front of Manor. Just as Kajar was about to rush in, Feline pulled her back. Kajar, you're too rash. Feline, let go. You haven't recovered from your injuries, and we've received news that there are quite a few Satanists here, Feline advised. I know what I'm doing, Kajar said coldly. Kajar. Feline didn't let go. But at that moment, Kajar suddenly pushed Feline. Feline felt a terrifying force hit him in the face. Feline's entire body was sent flying. Although Feline flew a few meters away, he wasn't injured. However, his face was filled with disbelief. Kajar, what's going on? Where did you get such powerful magic? I told you, I know what I'm doing. After saying that, Kajar's body suddenly turned into a black fog and disappeared into the manor in front of them. At the periphery of the manor, Kajar saw a lizard monster. The black fog that Kajar had turned into was especially well hidden in the darkness. Even when the black fog spread to the back of the lizard monster, he didn't notice it. Kajar suddenly stretched out her hands from the black fog and heavily slapped the lizard monster's back. The lizard monster didn't even have time to make sound before its body instantly exploded. Kajar turned around and saw that Feline had followed her in. "What are you doing here?" "I'm worried," Feline said. "I can handle myself. I don't need you." Kajar had an unapproachable expression on her face. "Shoo!" Feline suddenly pulled Kajar down. "There are a few hidden sentries here. If you go out, you'll be discovered," Feline said in a low voice. Kajar froze for a moment before carefully observing. Detection wasn't her strong point, but Feline could switch magic systems. So, Kajar still believed Feline's words. "I'll use Vanish to help you hide." Vanish was a type of concealment magic. It could be considered a type of support magic. Its effect was to completely conceal a person. Of course, concealment was a magic concealment. In fact, it could still be seen with the naked eye. It was similar to modern stealth fighters. The stealth fighter was just shielding itself from radar scanning. It could still be seen with the naked eye. This concealment spell worked the same way. It could block the perception of magic, but it could be seen by the naked eye. Although it looked weak, it was actually very powerful. This was because many spiritualists were used to using magic to sense things. Especially now that it was still nighttime, whether it was the enemy or themselves, their vision was affected to a certain extent. The lizard men also had night vision and thermal sensing, which was also included in the category of magic perception. Therefore, Feline's concealment spell could come in handy here. Feline also cast a concealment spell on himself. Just then, a truck horn sounded from outside the manor. "Papa!" That voice was very loud and clear. Then, Feline and Kajol saw an oil truck rush into the manor's gate. The iron gate was sent flying by the oil truck. Both Kajar and Feline were astonished. The two of them looked at each other in confusion. Just like that, oil truck swaggered in. Along the way, two Satanists with human appearances were directly crushed by the tanker. However, at this time, more Satanists rushed out of the mansion. The truck didn't care about anything else and ran over the Satanists. The Satanists were prepared and quickly dodged. This time, the crushing didn't work. They immediately turned into lizard men. Then, they jumped onto the front of the truck, wanting to attack the driver. The truck crashed into the front gate of the mansion. Boom! Just then, the oil tank pulled by the truck suddenly exploded. In the blink of an eye, dozens of lizard men were engulfed in flames. Kajol's eyes lit up as she watched. This was a really good move. Why didn't she think of this? Right now, the manor was in chaos. The impact of the explosion caused half of the mansion to collapse. Feline furrowed his brows. To be honest, if she was involved in that kind of explosion, she probably wouldn't be able to escape either. Just then, a person walked out of the blazing flames. Chun Zhao walked out of the flames. A lizard man completely ignited by oil pounced at Chun Zhao crazily. Then, Chun Zhao kicked it away. Chun Zhao was quite satisfied with this ambush. The oil truck killed a large number of lizard men. Just then, the shadow eye on Chun Zhao's arm opened. Strangely, Chun Zhao didn't realize that someone was watching him. Just then, a large number of lizard men charged out of the mansion. Feline saw the person clearly. It's him. Feline, do you know him? He stayed at Hilda Hotel before too. He asked me about the White Spear Society. Who is he? I don't know. I only know that he's an enhancer. He has pretty good defense and strength. Feline had a deep impression of Chun Zhao's punch. He can ignore that explosion. His defense isn't just strong, Kajol said. Let's go help. Wait. Let's see. Feline felt that they should be more cautious. What are we waiting for? Since he's an enemy of the Satanists, he's our comrade, Kajol said as she charged out. As soon as Kajol appeared, two lizard men charged at her. Explode, Kajol growled. A shockwave erupted from Kajol's body, instantly killing the two lizard monsters. Chun Zhao turned to look at Kajol. What a powerful magic power. This kind of magic power is almost comparable to Hallie's enormous. Who are you? Chun Zhao asked, confused. You're an enemy of the Satanists? Sort of, Chun Zhao said. Then we're friends, Kajol said. Kajol, my little baby, are you okay? Aimsha walked out of the mansion. Even though the entire mansion had turned into a sea of fire, Aimsha was still calm. Chun Zhao also looked at Aimsha. The woman's magic was also very powerful. It was even larger than Kajol's. She probably wasn't a regular Satanist. With such powerful magic, could she be the leader of the Satanists? Aimsha looked at Kajol in astonishment. Little darling, you actually sacrifice your life in exchange for powerful magic power. I'm going to kill you. When Aimsha appeared in front of Kajol, Kajol instantly lost control and charged at Aimsha like a madwoman. Aimsha pointed at Kajol with her right hand and drew a strange rune in the air with 2 fingers. Freeze. Chapter 1679. Kajar's body stopped moving. It was as if the scene had been frozen. Chun Zhao was shocked. This spell was similar to West's slow field. At least the effect was similar. Traitor, let go of me. If you have any dignity left, fight me fairly. Kajol roared furiously. Fair fight? I'm not interested. Aimsha said disapprovingly. Besides, I'm your adoptive mother. Don't you think it's a little disrespectful to talk to me like that? I'd rather die in an orphanage than be adopted by a demon like you. Kajar roared. Guys, did you forget about me? Chun Zhao interrupted their argument. Can you tell me who you are? Aimsha looked at Chun Zhao. Fine, sir. Who are you? Are you from the Satanists? Chun Zhao asked. Looks like you have a grudge against them, Aimsha said coolly. Aimsha didn't waste any time. She cast the same spell at Chun Zhao. Freeze. Chun Zhao didn't move. He just stood there. This woman's spell was the same as West's slow field. If one's magical power or energy was too much, they wouldn't be able to affect the other. Chun Zhao had tried West's slow field. It was this feeling. There was a moment of pause. Then, he directly broke through this pause. You're the one who caused trouble in the city and killed many Satanists, right? Would you believe me if I said no? Chun Zhao chuckled. Just then, the lizard monsters surrounded them. They scratched Chun Zhao's body. But Chun Zhao wasn't hurt at all. Lady, my clothes are branded. They're very expensive. Are you an enhancer? Aimsha looked at Chun Zhao. The lizard monster's claws didn't hurt him at all. Obviously. Do you think I can't do anything to you? You could try. Chun Zhao chuckled. A white spear condensed in Amesha's hand, and she threw it at Chun Zhao. But the moment the spear stabbed into Chun Zhao's chest, it shattered like glass. Very strong defense. No wonder you can kill so many Satanists. Aimsha waved her hand. Tie him up. The lizard monster took out a chain and tied Chun Zhao up. Where do you want to take me? To reclaim the sea? You'll know soon enough. Aimsha didn't want to talk to Chun Zhao anymore. She turned to Kajol. Baby, I actually love you. Do you believe me? The more affectionate Aimsha was, the angrier Kajol became. However, Aimsha didn't seem to notice Kajol's angry gaze. Her fingertips caressed Kajol's youthful cheeks. What a pity, this young body. Aimsha sighed. After that, Aimsha ordered the lizard monster to tie Kajar up. I've seen some old witches before, Chun Zhao said, watching from the side. They're just like you. Aimsha wasn't angry at his words. She glanced at him casually. You'll die faster if you talk too much. Fine. Chun Zhao shrugged nonchalantly. I'll try to speak less in the future. Huh. I hope you still have a future. With a wave of her hand, Aimsha carried Chun Zhao and Cargill into the cargo compartment of a large truck. Aimsha also entered the truck and closed the door. The entire truck fell into darkness. Madam, where are you sending us? You'll know soon enough, Aimsha said coolly, hiding in the darkness. Can't you tell me in advance? That way, I can be prepared. The headquarters of the Satanism, Aimsha said. Really? Then I can see the leader of the Satanism, right? Puff. Aren't you scared? What do you think will happen if you go to the Satanism now? At worst, I'll just be a living sacrifice, Chun Zhao said, unconcerned. Aren't you scared at all? For normal people, death was the most terrifying thing. But for spiritualists, death wasn't the end. What truly made people feel despair was a living sacrifice. Sacrificing flesh and soul to some creature. Everything would become someone else's fun. Bien. Some were even worse than bien. Some were worse than bien, erasing some traces of existence. This was the result that spiritualists feared the most. Chen Zhao yawned. I'm a bit sleepy. Wake me up when we get there. Both Kajar and Aim Shah were dumbfounded by Chen Zhao's attitude. They couldn't feel any fear from Chen Zhao at all. Not all. Just then, there was a thud at the top of the truck. It sounded like something had landed on the top of the truck. Chen Zhao opened his eyes. He didn't expect it to be Feline. Why was she here? A while later, the truck was opened. Feline was here to save Kajar. Feline, go. It's a trap. Kajar yelled. What? Feline couldn't react in time. Aimshah had already moved. Freeze. Feline was also frozen. Feline, I didn't expect you to come to New Orleans. Did Kajar call you here? Aimshah knew Feline too. Uft. You're so weak, and you're trying to save people. Chen Zhao said sarcastically. Kajar and Feline both glared at Chen Zhao. By the way, Feline, where have you been these days? Why did you leave without saying anything? Portia's been sad for a long time. Feline didn't want to hear Chen Zhao's voice. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao clearly didn't have that awareness. If I knew you had a grudge against Satanism, we should have worked together. Feline didn't have a grudge against Satanism. Oh, I'm hungry. Ms. Aimshah, do you have food? No. Aimshah replied indifferently. Do you know that a hungry offering will affect the taste of the summoned or contracted target? It'll affect the target's mood and even the success of the sacrifice? Do you want to add some pepper and salt? Aimshah sneered. That depends on what the contracted target likes, but most of them prefer lighter flavors. The three people in a container were all speechless. Do you think that you'll be fine even if you're caught because of your amazing defense? Huh? You guessed it. I do think so. Idiot. Feline snorted coldly. After driving for a few hours, the truck finally stopped. Are we at our stop? The container was opened, and a strong aura of hell rushed out. Welcome to hell. Aimshah walked out of the truck first. The three were brought out of the truck. It was snowing. It was snowing black here. Chapter 1680. Just then, an honor guard came over. For lizard men carried a metal palanquin. Roy was sitting on it. There were also people raising flags in front and behind them. The patterns on those flags were cryptic and strange. When they reached the crowd, the metal palanquin was lowered. With the help of the lizard men, Roy stood up in a charming manner and strolled over. Crack! Suddenly, Chen Zhao heard something crack. He turned to look at Kajar. The chains on her were shattering. Very powerful. Kajar's magic increased again. Right now, she was above Amesh's magic. She had broken the restraining spell Aimshah had put on her. 2 streaks of bloody tears appeared on Kajar's face. Aimshah raised an eyebrow, also surprised, but she didn't attack. Instead, she took a step back. Kajar spread her arms and completely broke free. Kajar's hatred for Aimshah and Roy was greater than anything else. Right now, Kajar's hair was fluttering. A cyclone surrounded her, and her clothes whistled. Feline stared at Kajar in disbelief. Where did she get such a powerful magic power? Kajar raised her arm and aimed her palm at Roy. A terrifying force shot out from her palm. Roy didn't move at all. A magic rune appeared before her. Bang! The force from Kajar's palm shattered the magic rune before Roy. Roy's gaze was indifferent. There were still dozens of magic runes surrounding her. Feline's face was full of disbelief. Was this the leader of the Satanism? She was so powerful. Kajar had released such a terrifying magic attack, but she wasn't affected at all. Roy raised his finger and pointed at Kajal. 2 magic runes flew towards her. The runes landed on Kajar's body and immediately turned into black chains, wrapping around her. Kajal bellowed and snarled. The black chains on her body creaked. Still not enough? Roy was surprised. Another magic rune flew towards Kajal. This time, however, the rune took the form of a looming demon. The demon hugged Kajar from behind, and then its figure gradually faded. Kajar's struggles became much weaker. No matter how hard she struggled, she could not break free from this restraint. Fu Lin was already dumbfounded by what he saw. Was this the strength of a top-notch spiritualist? Roy walked in front of Kajal and placed his palm on her forehead. Lost child, I will now give you a chance to return to the right path. Pledge your loyalty to my lord, and my lord will erase your hatred and grant you peace. The ruthlessness and madness on Kajol's body gradually subsided, and her gaze became peaceful. What a powerful hypnosis. Come, give me one too. Chen Zhao suddenly called out. Kajol perked up and woke up from her daze again. Roy frowned and turned to look at Chen Zhao. Who are you? You're not a member of the White Spear Association. I'm from Los Angeles. Do you want peace? Roy walked up to him. Yes, I want to. Chen Zhao nodded. Roy raised his hand and pressed it against Chen Zhao's forehead. Those who are lost. Suddenly, Chen Zhao raised his head and bit Roy's palm. Roy screamed. Let go, crack. Chen Zhao tore off a piece of flesh from Roy's palm. Everyone was astonished. Roy hugged his right palm and retreated a few steps, pain on his face. Chen Zhao spat out the flesh. Puffed. It's really sour. Imsha also revealed a look of surprise. Just then, Chen Zhao broke free from the chains on him. Finally, I don't have to pretend anymore. Leader of Satanism, do you know that I've been looking for you for a long time? Chen Zhao moved his limbs. Imsha, Roy yelled. Imsha didn't want to attack, but she had to do it now. Holy Spear. Imsha spread her arms, and a white magic circle appeared behind her. A white spear appeared in the center of each array. The white spears seemed to be real and emitted a white metallic texture. Freeze! Imsha used the same trick and froze Chen Zhao. The spell was instantly broken, but Chen Zhao didn't dodge. He tilted his head and looked at Imsha. Is this the Chinese freeze spell? Chen Zhao hadn't come into contact with it before, but in the Chinese sect's records, there were some special features of the spell. So, Chen Zhao naturally thought of it. Go! Imsha didn't answer his question. Dozens of white spears shot at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao reached out and grabbed a white spear, allowing the others to land on him. These scattered attacks were useless against him. If Imsha could gather all her magic, she could give him the power to attack. Only then could she break his defense. The white spears that landed on Chen Zhao all dissipated the moment they touched him. The constitution of no attribute worked again. If it was a pure physical attack, it was more likely to hurt Chen Zhao. But magic attacks couldn't reach the threshold of the constitution of no attribute. To Chen Zhao, it was like a breeze. Chen Zhao squeezed the white spear in his hand lightly, and it disintegrated. Holy light bind. Dozens of white chains extended from the darkness. Each chain wrapped around Chen Zhao's body. In the blink of an eye, he was tied up like a dumpling. Chen Zhao was confused. The white chains were also made of magic. But why didn't they dissipate? Was it because the spell wasn't offensive? Chen Zhao raised his arms, and the countless white chains were shattered into pieces. Feline stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief. How is this possible? How could this guy be so strong? Last time, he'd observe his magic. It was only the size of a finger, not even 1/10 of his size. How could he be so strong? Remember what I said just now? You can't even hurt me. How can you kill me? Feline and Kajar both thought that Chen Zhao was too arrogant. This was the headquarters of the Church of Satan. Was it really okay to be so arrogant here? As expected, what they were most worried about finally happened. Large numbers of lizard monsters appeared in all directions. They were so dense that not even a drop of water could pass through. Among the lizard monsters, there were also a few huge lizard-like monsters. These lizard monsters were all more than 10 meters long. If a person with trypophobia was in that situation, they would definitely pass out from fear. Feline and Kajar felt their scalps go numb. How could they fight? They couldn't win at all. Chapter 1681. No matter how crazy Kajar was, facing the thousands of soldiers and horses in front of them, they also felt a sense of suffocation. Feline was even more shocked. She was also stunned by the dense horde of monsters. Just how many lizards and giant lizards were there? 1,000? 10,000? This number probably wasn't enough to explain the number of monsters. There was no hope. This was simply an unfair war. Madam, you don't think you can escape by hiding behind these trash, right? Roy looked at Chen Zhao across the hundreds of lizards. Talk after you get past them. Fine. Maybe you need me to help you see reality." The war erupted instantly. Chun Zhao had already charged into the encirclement of the lizards. In an instant, a rain of blood and a foul wind blew. In the blink of an eye, Chun Zhao tore 3 or 4 lizards apart. Feline's eyes widened. Only now did she realize that Chun Zhao was stronger than she'd imagined. However, even though Feline's impression of Chun Zhao had changed, it still wouldn't change her worries. To her, no matter how strong Chun Zhao was, he couldn't change the current situation. How many could he kill? 10? 100? 1,000? It was meaningless. There were simply too many enemies. When the numbers reached a certain level, there would be a qualitative change. Chun Zhao didn't use mass destruction tactics. If he used Imperial 1,000 swords, no matter how many lizards there were, they wouldn't be enough for him to kill. These lizards were probably all the Satanists had. If he killed them all, the Satanists would probably feel heartache too. Anyway, the Satanist leader was right under his nose. She couldn't escape, but Chun Zhao was curious about the black snow. Where did this black snow come from? Also, who caused the black snow? Roy had been observing Chun Zhao from behind the lizards. Seeing an opportunity, Roy attacked. 10 magic runes around her suddenly shot out, heading straight for Chun Zhao. The moment the magic runes reached Chun Zhao, they suddenly turned into 10 indistinct demons. The 10 demons hugged Chun Zhao, just like how they dealt with Kajar earlier. However, Kajar had only been one. Now, there were 10. Chun Zhao felt his body freeze, but the next moment, his power exploded. Clang, clang. A clear cracking sound came from Chun Zhao's body. Roy's head hurt, and he almost lost his balance. What is wrong with this guy? 10 Devil's Embrace were instantly destroyed by him. Roy hesitated for a moment. The pain from the hole in her palm kept reminding her. Roy looked at the 20 magic runes hovering around him. After a slight hesitation, Roy finally made up his mind. More than 20 magic runes gathered together, forming a terrifying claw that swiped at Chun Zhao. Satan's Claw. When Kajar and Fuline saw the giant claw that appeared out of thin air, they couldn't help but gasp. That terrifying giant claw brought them a great sense of oppression. Just then, Chun Zhao swung his fist upward. A fist shadow broke through the air and collided head-on with Satan's Claw. Bang! The shockwave spread in all directions. Hundreds of lizard monsters nearby were knocked down. Satan's Claw and Chun Zhao's fist disappeared at the same time. Feline and Kajel were dumbfounded. How terrifying! Whether it was Royer or Chun Zhao, all of this had given them a huge shock. The lizard monsters around Chun Zhao all collapsed. But soon enough, more lizard monsters surrounded them. A giant lizard broke through the crowd and charged at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao held the lizard's mouth with both arms and tore. The lizard's upper and lower jaws were torn open. Feline and Kajel couldn't help but exclaim. The scene was too shocking. Even Kajel didn't dare to say that she could kill such a giant lizard instantly. Chun Zhao pulled off a broken claw from his shoulder and tossed it away. A strong smell of blood permeated the air. Just then, the lizard monsters suddenly retreated. What? You admit defeat? I haven't had enough yet. To the others, Chun Zhao's words sounded too arrogant. How many lizard monsters did you kill? Do you really think you've won? Just then, 10 giants appeared from the back. They were more than 10 meters tall. They moved slowly, taking a few seconds with each step. Their eyes were dull, as if they had no consciousness. Each of the giants was dragging a giant sword that was even larger than their bodies. Suddenly, one of the giants sped up. It reached Chun Zhao in an instant and swung the huge sword down. Chun Zhao dodged the slash, but the giant froze again as if it was frozen. It didn't move at all. Just then, another giant charged over. It was also as fast as lightning when it attacked. After the attack, it froze on the spot while maintaining its posture. Chun Zhao was just about to attack the frozen giant when the first giant moved again. This attack was out of Chun Zhao's expectations. He couldn't defend in time. The huge sword landed on Chun Zhao's body. It didn't break his defense, but it sent him flying in the air. Feline and Kajel's hearts tightened. Chun Zhao wouldn't die, right? Chun Zhao just lay there. Just then, another giant leaped high into the air and stabbed its sword down at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao put his palms together and blocked the huge sword. Chun Zhao increased his strength again, turning the tables and snatching the sword from the giant's hand. The giant was also flung away by Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao stood up again. Just then, another giant charged over. Chun Zhao had more or less figured out what was going on with these giants. They were probably some kind of puppet. They weren't alive. Before they attacked, they would either slow down or just stop. But once they attacked, they were extremely sharp. Chun Zhao held the huge sword with both arms and swung it horizontally. The giant and the sword were cut in half. The giant's body crashed down. Fuling and Kajel were dumbfounded, their faces filled with disbelief. Fuling felt that his provocation toward Chun Zhao that day was so laughable. Chun Zhao looked at the huge sword in his hand and stabbed it into the hilt. This way, he didn't need to hold the sword with both arms. Chun Zhao tried swinging the sword. Not bad. Apart from being a bit lighter, it didn't feel bad. Chun Zhao looked at the other 8 giants. Suddenly, Chun Zhao's eyes widened. He and his sword had disappeared. In less than a second, the 8 giants were split open at the same time. Everything happened in an instant. Everything ended in an instant. Both Fuling and Kajel were shocked. Was that guy even human? Very good. I grant you the right to submit to me, a sudden voice said. God Emperor of the 9 Heavens. Chapter 1682. Chun Zhao looked up and realized that it was a girl. The girl's hair was so long that it dragged on the ground. She was barefoot, and half of her face was a bloody mess. The other half was very beautiful. Roy stood behind the girl, as if she was his master. The girl's skin was as clear as snow. She was wrapped in a thin white gauze, but her eyes were green. She wasn't tall, but she gave off a suffocating aura. However, his body was emitting a suffocating aura. The air seemed to freeze. Then let's see if you have the right to make me submit. Chun Zhao raised his huge sword and slashed at the girl. Chun Zhao wouldn't believe her just because of her appearance. The girl was just a vessel. Her soul was that of a demon lord. She wasn't a demon lord like Beelzebub, who ruled over a small village. Whether in the human world or hell, she was a powerful demon. Wrong answer. The girl pointed at Chun Zhao with a slender finger. A beam of red light shot through the air. The blade of Chun Zhao's huge sword was instantly pierced. Then his chest was pierced too. The girl tilted her head and looked at him. You're not dead. With that, she waved her hand. Instantly, a terrifying chasm was left on the ground. The chasm was hundreds of meters long and dozens of meters wide. The rocks in the chasm had almost melted. Smoke rose from both sides. Fuling and Kajar were both shocked. Who was this girl? They thought that Chun Zhao was already strong enough. But before this girl, Chun Zhao couldn't even block one attack. He couldn't even block one attack. He'd been evaporated by the girl. Supreme Lucifer, your greatness is as dazzling as the morning star. Roy knelt beside the girl sincerely. The girl looked at Roy and tapped his forehead lightly with her finger. Instantly, Roy felt that his injuries had completely healed. The mana he'd used was also completely recovered. He was even 10 times stronger than before. The magic runes he'd used earlier appeared again. There were now more than 60 magic runes circling around his body. Fuling and Kajar stared at the girl in disbelief. Lucifer? Could this girl be the legendary Great Demon King? Ah, Lucifer? Suddenly, a voice sounded. Everyone looked for the source of the voice. Chun Zhao walked out of the darkness. He didn't die. Fuling was surprised. Kajel was equally shocked. Avatar 10,000 techniques returned to one. Dark assimilation, mighty miracle god. Chun Zhao turned into a 5-meter-tall giant. You didn't die? The girl was also puzzled. Was there anyone in the world who could block his attack? You're not bad. I can give you another chance now. Serve me, the young lady said. Chun Zhao grinned. I'll say the same thing. Let me see if you have the right to make me submit. The girl pointed at him. Wrong answer. But Chun Zhao stepped forward and held the girl's hand. Ka-cha! The girl's palm and arm were instantly crushed. The girl's expression changed. She pulled out her deformed arm and retreated. Chen Zhao looked at the rotten flesh on his palm. Your body is really fragile. Chen Zhao flipped his palm over. The girl's arm grew back, and her expression became solemn. How dare you? Roy jumped out impatiently. Chen Zhao didn't care if she was bold or not. He threw a punch. After turning magic into immortal power, Chen Zhao hadn't used his full strength yet. Even when facing Amanda Didier, he didn't use his full strength. This time, Chen Zhao used his full strength. The punch was like a mountain crashing down. Roy felt a suffocating pressure approaching. All the magic runes around him gathered to form a black wall. But the next moment, the punch disintegrated it. The black wall shattered like a fragile glass mirror. Roy's mind went blank. It's over. Roy's body exploded instantly. The fist shadow swept past like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The girl felt a trace of danger. She couldn't block it. She had to dodge it. The girl moved and dodged Chen Zhao's punch. But just as she dodged, Chen Zhao was already waiting for her in the direction she dodged. In Tannabia, Chen Zhao looked down at the girl. The girl's expression changed again. You? How do you know my name? Not only do I know your name, but I also know that you betrayed Satan and your soul escaped to the human world. Chen Zhao looked at the girl. No, it should be the demon Tannabia. If your physical body and soul fused into one, you might be able to fight me. But right now, you're just a soul. Coupled with this mortal's physical body, how much power can you unleash? 1/5 or a quarter? Chen Zhao smiled at Tannabia. Tannabia wasn't weak. He could still hurt Chen Zhao, but he couldn't use his full power. If he exceeded the threshold, his current body would collapse. His soul could only obediently go back to hell. That would be his ultimate nightmare. Because when his soul left his body and came to the human world, he'd already been discovered by his master, Satan. If he returned to hell, he'd have to face Satan's fury. If he returned to hell, he'd have to face Satan's wrath. Who are you? How do you know my secret? And Tannabia was actually a little scared. It wasn't because of the power Chen Zhao had displayed. It was because Chen Zhao actually knew his secret. You can ask your master, Satan, Chen Zhao said with a smile. If it's him, he might answer your question. Antaz's expression was serious. Do you think you'll definitely win? Tannabia was prepared to make one last attempt. He opened his huge mouth and sucked in huge mouthfuls of air. The lizard men around him started to wilt, followed by their souls. Actually, even though he'd come to the human world as a soul, it was still very difficult. This was because his soul also had power that exceeded the limit. So, he thought of a solution. He scattered half of his soul and distributed it to his believers. This way, his believers would become stronger. This also prevented him from being sent back to hell by the rules. And when he needed to, he could retrieve his soul at any time. Right now, he needed these soul fragments. However, when he took back his soul fragment, it was not just his own soul fragment. He also absorbed the souls of his believers. Tannabia's power continued to grow. On the other hand, the lizard monsters were collapsing in droves. Countless souls mixed with Tannabia's soul fragments and merged with him. Chapter 1683. Aimsha was in even more pain. She'd also benefited from Tannabia's soul fragment. Moreover, the soul fragment she'd received was much larger than normal believers. This was the deal between her and Royer. She'd betrayed the White Spear Society and obtained great power. This was power that she'd never obtained in her entire life. But now, the true price had appeared. Her deal partner had broken his promise. The power that should have belonged to her was being forcefully taken back. No, no, no. This is mine. However, she clearly didn't have the power to fight against Tannabia. Moreover, the power and soul fragment had originally belonged to Tannabia. Aimsha resisted with all her might. But all of this was useless. Even half of her soul had been pulled out of her body. Her soul was resisting too. Damn guy, hurry up and kill that demon. Hurry up and kill him, or we'll all die. Aimsha could only vent her anger on Chen Zhao. Hurry up and stop him from devouring. he'll become stronger and stronger. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Aim Sha. His figure flashed, and he appeared before Aim Sha. I almost forgot about you. Chen Zhao lifted his leg. You? What are you doing? Aim Sha didn't expect her words to make Chen Zhao target her. Chen Zhao's foot stomped down, and Aim Sha was crushed into meat paste. Then, Amesh's soul was pulled toward Antanabia. Seeing Amesh's final outcome, Katia didn't know what to think. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Antanabia. At this moment, his fleshly body was already distorted. This body had gone through many magical processes, but there was still a huge gap between it and his original body. If it was only half of his soul, he could barely handle it. But now, Antanabia had exceeded this limit. Gradually, Antanabia turned into a demon of the same size as Chen Zhao. Antanabia wasn't unfamiliar with his own power, but this body was about to collapse. He needed a new body, and that was Chen Zhao's body. If he won, everything would be fine. Chen Zhao's body could completely contain his entire soul and power. But if he lost, it would be a complete tragedy for him. No, that was a fate even more tragic than a tragedy. Without wasting any words, he made his move. Antanabia lunged at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao punched from above. Rumble, the ground cracked, and the ground spread out in all directions like waves. The surrounding buildings collapsed instantly, as if they had encountered a strong earthquake. For Kajar and Fuline, this kind of terrifying destructive power was unimaginable. The battle between Chen Zhao and Antanabia completely overturned their understanding of the word battle. Kajar and Fuline felt as if they were facing a monstrous wave. Every impact was beyond imagination. Is that all you have? Chen Zhao punched Antaz's head. Several souls spilled out of his body. Antanabia did not hold back either. His counterattack swiped at Chen Zhao's chest. A bloody mark was left on Chen Zhao's chest. The wound on Chen Zhao's chest healed instantly. Right now, Chen Zhao's power wasn't the only thing that had reached its peak. Even his regenerative ability had reached an astonishing level. Of course, Antanabia was no worse than Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao grabbed Antaz's cheek. Demon Cannon. Energy mixed with angelic crystal burst out of Chen Zhao's palm. The angelic crystal energy poured into Antaz's body. Antanabia felt like his insides were about to be burned. Cough, cough. Holy power was unparalleled against demons. Even a great lord wouldn't dare to stuff angelic crystal into his mouth. Back then, Chen Zhao had used this move to kill a great lord. Antanabia vomited large amounts of black blood. Chen Zhao lifted Anta up. At the same time, he stuffed a perfect angelic crystal into his mouth. Then, Chen Zhao hooked Antaz's chin accurately. The perfect angelic crystal shattered in Antaz's mouth. Anta felt the angelic crystal powder flow through his veins and through his entire body. White light started shining under his skin. The pain was unimaginable. Boom, boom, boom. Every time Chen Zhao smashed into Antanabia, the ground would shake. Antanabia knew that he was in a hopeless situation. He had to take out his trump card. Antanabia took out a transparent container. Just then, Chen Zhao grabbed Antaz's wrist. Crack! His wrist was broken. Then Chen Zhao snatched the container from his hand. Give it back. Chen Zhao kicked Antanabia away. Satan's blood. Chen Zhao looked at the star-like light spots in the container. This wasn't his first time seeing Satan's blood. But Chen Zhao hadn't killed him yet. It was because of Satan's blood. Chen Zhao needed Antanabia to take out Satan's blood. Putting away Satan's blood, Chen Zhao turned to Antanabia. When we return to hell, remember to say hi to him for me. A nasty smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Fist shadows. Chen Zhao finally released his full power. Terrifying fist shadows rained down on Antanabia. Every strike would knock the undigested souls out of Antanabia's body. However, even if the souls escaped from Antaz's body, they still couldn't escape the fist shadows. The ground was moving and the mountains were shaking. The entire town had been destroyed in the battle between Chun Zhao and Antanabia. Fissures appeared on the ground. Feline and Kajar's expressions froze. What they were facing was a battle between inhuman beings. Just then, a ripple appeared in the ground. The ripple came from the center of Chun Zhao and Antaz's battle. The ripple spread through the entire town. The corpses of the Satanists on the ground seemed to be pulled by some force and gathered at the center. Antanabia was lying in a big hole. The ripple spread out from his body. The ripple was pulling him underground. Antanabia climbed up with difficulty. He wanted to avoid the ripple, but he seemed to have fallen into a swamp. He couldn't escape the ripple from hell. No, I don't want to go back to hell. Antanabia struggled. He suddenly grabbed Chun Zhao's ankle. He wanted to pull Chun Zhao into hell too, but the ripple didn't affect him at all. Chapter 1684. No matter how Antanabia struggled, he couldn't break free from the sinking trend. In the end, only one hand was still on the surface. Only then did Chun take out the container of Satan's blood and toss it into Antanabia's hand. The Satan's blood and Antanabia sank into the ripples together. Just then, the Satan's blood suddenly floated up again and the ripples disappeared. Beep beep. Chun picked up the other phone and dialed the handsome guy's number. Handsome, how did your Satan's blood return to the human world? It's for you, the guy said. Did you catch him? Yes. Turn the camera around and let me see. The handsome guy turned the camera, and Chun saw that the handsome guy was holding a terrifying giant demon in his hand. This was Antanabia's real body. His real body was like a small mountain. To be honest, if his real body was here, Chun Jun might not be able to defeat him. Chun held the container of Satan's blood. How do I use this? Absorb it. How? Modify the spell I taught you last time. Oh, how are you going to deal with that traitor? Fear, despair, and regret. That's his fate. The handsome boy paused for a moment. Do you want his body? For what? Don't you have a lot of little demons at home? I'll give it to them as snacks. Okay, I'll take it next time I go to hell. The black snow had stopped. Feline and Kajol watched Chun walk out of the rubble. Both of them looked at Chun in disbelief. In their eyes, Chun was like a walking nuclear bomb. Chun sent those terrifying demons back to hell, just like that. Jen walked to Kajol's side and glanced at her. She shook her head. She didn't have many days left. Chun couldn't do anything about it. She traded her life force for powerful magic power. No one could save her. Right now, her life force was like a candlelight that could go out at any time. Eat and have fun while you still have time, Chun said calmly. Don't leave any regrets in your life. Kajol stared at him, stunned. With that, Chun suddenly soared into the sky and disappeared into the night. Once again, Kajar and Feline felt Chun's mysteriousness and power. They had never seen a spiritualist that could fly. Even elementalists could only rely on wind magic to fly a short distance. However, Chun disappeared into the night sky. Feline suddenly snapped out of his daze. Katie, what did that man mean? It's nothing. Kajel shook her head. At this moment, she felt exhausted. Not that her life had come to an end. It was because she had extinguished the burning life force. But even if it was extinguished now, it was already too late. She had burned too much of her life force. She did not have much time left. Chun Zhao secretly landed on the rooftop of the hotel. He was now completely naked. He had forgotten to prepare clothes in his spatial ring. This made him very embarrassed. Chun found his way to his room and quickly opened the door. Clang! Portia's face was covered with a facial mask, and the milk in her hand fell to the ground. I'll let you into my room. Get out of the room. Chun would never give Portia the chance to speak first. He scolded her the moment they met, leaving her with no way to retaliate. Hurry up and get out, Chun roared. Portia was extremely angry. She tore off her facial mask and left. Chun heaved a long sigh. The next day, when Portia entered Chun's room again, she looked at Chun with a strange expression. She had already decided that Chun was a pervert. He was an absolute pervert. After all, running naked in a hotel was unheard of. Boss. Portia looked at Chun. Yes. Chun did not turn around. He did not know how to face Portia. Anyway, he did not plan to explain. He could not explain either. Order me a breakfast. 1:10, Chun said. Oh, book the plane tickets. The sooner, the better. Boss, is the incident in New Orleans over? Yes, it's over, Chun replied. Portia felt that Chin's job was to go out and be a pervert. After breakfast, Portia started to help Chun pack. She booked a plane ticket for noon. Time was tight. After checking out, Chun and Portia were about to drive to the airport. Just then, Feline appeared. Mr. Chun, can we talk? Feline. Portia looked at Portia in surprise. What's wrong? Chun asked. It's about Carly, that friend of mine. Chun got out of the car. Your friend is dying. What? She obtained powerful magic by burning her life force. She won't live for more than half a year. Try to fulfill her wish as long as there's good food and fun, Chun said. Is there no way to save her? Feline's tone was heavy. After all, anyone who heard such news would not be happy. There's no way. Chun shook his head. There's no way at all. If she doesn't want to leave, just let her soul stay by your side after she dies, Chun said. After all, for spiritualists like you and me, death doesn't mean absolute disappearance. He also believed that Feline had a way to let Carly's soul stay. Okay, I should go. Chun returned to the car and said to Portia, let's go. On the way, Portia could not help but ask, Boss, what's your relationship with Feline? It's okay. Portia did not believe Chun's words. She felt that Chun and Feline had some unspeakable relationship. When Feline came, his expression was strange. When he left, he looked sad. She wondered if Chun had abandoned Feline after sleeping with him. However, since Chun was not willing to say, she could not do anything. After boarding the plane, Chun closed his eyes to rest. Boss, let's talk. Don't you like chatting? Chun opened his eyes and turned to look at Portia. What do you want to talk about? About your relationship with Feline. Do you like gossip that much? Do you have that kind of relationship with Feline? I don't have anything to do with her, Chun said calmly. She's just related to my work in New Orleans. Just then, another passenger arrived beside Chun and Portia. When Samira saw Chun, he was stunned for a moment. Then he called the stewardess. Can I change seats? Sorry, miss. All first-class seats are taken unless you want to go downstairs. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.